When Marcus Reeves showed up for his first day as a security guard at Chicago's United Center, he had no idea his life was about to change forever. His boss gave him one clear rule: check everyone's credentials. No exceptions. So, when a tall man in sunglasses and a baseball cap tried to enter without proper ID, Marcus stood firm, even as whispers spread through the crowd. That man turned out to be Michael Jordan himself. Instead of getting angry, Jordan challenged Marcus to a one-on-one basketball match. If Marcus could stop Jordan from scoring, Jordan would leave. If Jordan scored, Marcus would let him in. What happened next sparked an incredible journey that connected their lives in ways neither could have imagined. A journey that revealed how a simple act of kindness years earlier would come back to change both their futures and thousands of lives across Chicago. Marcus Reeves stared up at the massive United Center, home of the Chicago Bulls. The morning sun reflected off its glass windows, making him squint. Today was his first day as a security guard, and his stomach tied itself in knots. "Don't mess this up," he whispered to himself, straightening his new uniform. The black polo shirt, with Premier Security Services stitched in gold thread, felt stiff against his skin. Marcus was 24, with broad shoulders and alert brown eyes. He'd been out of work for 3 months since the factory closed. This job was a lifeline, one he desperately needed with his mom's medical bills piling up on their kitchen table. "You must be Reeves," said a gruff voice behind him. Marcus turned to see a heavy-set man with a clipboard. His security badge read, "Thompson." "Yes, sir. Marcus Reeves, reporting for duty," Marcus said, standing taller. Thompson looked him up and down. "First day, huh? Well, you got thrown into the deep end. Big charity event tonight. Bulls legends, local celebrities, rich folks opening their wallets for youth basketball programs." Marcus nodded, trying to hide his nerves. "I'm ready, sir." "Good. You're stationed at the East VIP entrance. Check everyone's credentials, and I mean everyone. No exceptions." Thompson tapped his clipboard. "These fancy types think rules don't apply to them. Your job is to remind them they do." "Understood, sir." Thompson handed him an earpiece. "If you have problems, call it in. Don't try to handle anything serious yourself." After a quick tour, Marcus took his position at the east entrance. The event wouldn't start for hours, but staff and vendors were already bustling about, setting up auction items and checking sound systems. Marcus fingered the worn Chicago Bulls keychain in his pocket, his father's prized possession. Dad had been a massive basketball fan, though Marcus himself had never caught the bug. He preferred comics and video games growing up. Basketball was Dad's thing, not his. "Just get through today," Marcus told himself. "First paycheck means Mom's medicine." The hours crawled by. Marcus checked IDs and credentials, directing people to the right entrances. By late afternoon, his feet ached, but he remained alert. 2 hours until showtime. Thompson's voice crackled through the earpiece. "VIPs arriving. Soon. Stay sharp." Marcus straightened his uniform again. A group of caterers passed through, then some sound technicians. He checked each credential carefully. The sun was setting when a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Marcus expected a driver to hop out, but instead, a tall man in dark sunglasses and a baseball cap stepped out alone. He wore an expensive-looking suit, but had no visible credentials. No lanyard, no badge, nothing. The man nodded casually at Marcus and walked straight toward the entrance. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said, stepping forward. "I need to see your credentials." The tall man paused, looking surprised. He removed his sunglasses, revealing dark eyes that seemed vaguely familiar to Marcus. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," the man said with a slight smile. "I'm sorry, sir," Marcus interrupted politely but firmly. "Everyone needs credentials, no exceptions. Thompson's orders." The man's eyebrows rose. "Thompson sent you? Well, I still need to get in. This is my event." Marcus had heard this before, 3 times today, in fact. People claiming the event was theirs, or they were with the band, or personal friends. With Michael Jordan. "Sir, I'm sure you're important," Marcus said, remembering Thompson's warning about VIPs thinking rules didn't apply to them. "But I need to see credentials, or I can't let you in." The tall man seemed more amused than annoyed. "You really don't recognize me?" Marcus studied him more carefully. There was something familiar about his face, but Marcus couldn't place it. Working security in Chicago meant seeing all types: politicians, business people, sports figures. They all blended together after a while. "Sir, it doesn't matter if I recognize you or not. Rules are rules." A small crowd was gathering nearby, event staff and early arriving guests. Whispers spread. Marcus heard someone say, "Is that really him?" And, "Why isn't he letting him in?" The tall man reached into his pocket, then frowned. "My assistant has my VIP pass. He's running late." He looked directly at Marcus. "I'm Michael Jordan. This is my charity event." Marcus blinked. The name registered, of course. His father had practically worshipped Michael Jordan, the Bulls legend, the greatest basketball player ever, according to Dad. But this claim seemed too convenient, too unlikely. Why would Michael Jordan arrive alone? Where was his security team? And why wouldn't he have credentials for his own event? "Sir, I've heard a lot of names today," Marcus said carefully. "Without credentials, I need verification from management. I can call it in for you." The man who claimed to be Jordan looked around at the growing crowd, then back at Marcus. For a second, Marcus feared he'd made a terrible mistake. If this really was Michael Jordan, Marcus had just stopped a legend from entering his own charity event. But instead of anger, the man's face showed a flash of respect. "What's your name?" he asked. "Marcus Reeves, sir." "Marcus, I appreciate you doing your job. Not many people would stop me." A hint of a smile played on his lips. "But I really am Michael Jordan, and I really do need to get inside." At that moment, Marcus's earpiece crackled. "Reeves, is there a problem at the east entrance?" Thompson's voice boomed. Marcus never took his eyes off the tall man. "Sir, I have someone here claiming to be Michael Jordan. No credentials. Requesting verification." There was a long pause, then Thompson's voice returned, now higher pitched. "Is he wearing a gray suit with a red tie?" Marcus looked. "Yes, sir." "That's him! That's Jordan! Let him in now!" The tall man, apparently the real Michael Jordan, smiled as he watched the realization dawn on Marcus's face. "Sir, I'm so sorry," Marcus stammered, his cheeks burning. "I didn't." "Don't apologize for doing your job," Jordan said, but instead of walking past, he studied Marcus with interest. "Most people would have just waved me through." Marcus swallowed hard. "Sir, this is my first day. I can't afford to lose this job." Something in Jordan's expression changed. "First day, huh? And Thompson told you no exceptions?" "Yes, sir." Jordan nodded slowly, looking thoughtful. Then, instead of entering the building, he made a surprising suggestion. "You know what? I respect someone who stands their ground, but now we have a problem. You need proof I am who I say I am, and I left my ID with my assistant." His eyes sparked with a familiar competitive gleam that Marcus's father would have recognized instantly. "I have an idea of how we can settle this." "An idea?" Marcus echoed, his throat suddenly dry. The crowd around them had grown, with phones emerging to capture the standoff. Marcus could hear whispers rippling through the onlookers. "You don't believe I'm Michael Jordan," the tall man said, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of challenge. "So I propose we settle this the basketball way." Marcus blinked. "Basketball way?" "There's a practice court inside, one-on-one. If I can make a basket against your defense, you let me in. If you stop me, I'll wait for my assistant with my credentials." His smile was confident, almost playful. "Seems fair, doesn't it?" Marcus's mind raced. If this really was Michael Jordan, Marcus was about to make a complete fool of himself. If it wasn't, well, he'd be doing his job. Either way, a knot formed in his stomach. "Sir, I can't leave my post," Marcus said, though his resolve was weakening. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. "Let's call Thompson together. Ask if he minds." Before Marcus could respond, his earpiece crackled again. "Reeves!" Thompson's voice was frantic. "What's happening? Is Mr. Jordan inside yet?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Sir, he's suggesting we, settle this with a basketball challenge." There was silence. Then, what sounded like a choked laugh. "He wants to play you? One-on-one?" "Just one possession," Marcus clarified. "If he scores, I let him in." More silence. Then, "Kid, do you know who Michael Jordan is?" "My dad was a fan," Marcus said quietly. "And you still want to do this?" Thompson sounded incredulous. Marcus looked at the man claiming to be Jordan. There was something in his eyes, a flame, a challenge, that made Marcus stand straighter. "Yes, sir, I do." Thompson sighed loudly. "Your funeral, kid. I'll send Rodriguez to cover your post." The tall man grinned as Marcus lowered his hand from his earpiece. "Thompson approved?" "Yes, sir, but just one possession." "One possession is all I need," the man said, his confidence unwavering. As they walked toward the entrance, the crowd parted, phones recording their every move. Marcus caught snippets of conversation. "Is that really MJ? Who's the security guard? This is gonna be epic." Marcus felt like he was floating outside his body. Was he really about to play defense against a man who might be Michael Jordan? A man his father had idolized? His hand instinctively touched the Bulls keychain in his pocket. The man noticed. "Bulls fan?" Marcus pulled out the keychain, worn red leather with a faded Bulls logo. "It was my dad's. He never missed a game." The tall man's eyes softened slightly. "He's not with us anymore?" "Car accident. 5 years ago." The man nodded respectfully. "He saw the championships then?" "All 6. Had a poster of you, of Michael Jordan, on our living room wall. The famous one with the arms spread wide." "The Wings poster," the man said quietly. Marcus looked at him sharply. Only a real Bulls fan would know that nickname for the poster. As they entered the United Center, more people began to notice. A woman in an elegant dress gasped, then hurried over to a group of event organizers. Marcus could see them speaking, urgently, looking in their direction. "Mr. Jordan!" A flustered woman with a clipboard rushed toward them. "We've been expecting you. Is everything all right?" The tall man smiled. "Everything's fine, Sophia. Just having a friendly challenge with—" He looked at Marcus's name tag. "Mr. Reeves. Here. He's doing his job, making sure no one gets in without proper credentials." Sophia looked confused. "But you're—" "About to prove who I am," he finished with a wink, "on the practice court." Sophia's eyes widened. "But the event starts in an hour. The donors are arriving." "This won't take long," he assured her. "Have my team meet me by the court when they arrive." Marcus watched this exchange with growing certainty that he had, indeed, stopped the real Michael Jordan from entering his own charity event. His stomach sank, but another part of him, perhaps his father's son after all, felt a spark of excitement. As they made their way through the corridors of the United Center, staff members stopped and stared. Some nudged colleagues. One man, in a catering uniform, nearly dropped a tray of appetizers. "They recognize you," Marcus said quietly. "Or they think they do," the man replied enigmatically. They passed a wall of Bulls memorabilia, and Marcus couldn't help but notice a large photograph. The AFI 1997-98 championship team. The man in the center of the photo looked remarkably like the man walking beside him, only younger. "My dad was at the flu game," Marcus said suddenly, surprising himself. The tall man stopped. 1997? Utah? Marcus nodded. He always said it was the greatest thing he ever saw. A man so sick he could barely stand, scoring 38 points. 38 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, the man corrected automatically, then caught himself. "Or so I've heard." They turned a corner and arrived at the E2 practice court, a gleaming hardwood floor with Bulls logos. The lights were already on, and surprisingly, a small crowd had gathered. "Word travels fast," the man remarked. Among the observers, Marcus spotted several men who looked vaguely familiar. Former players, perhaps? One tall, thin man with a distinctive mustache approached them, grinning widely. "Mike, what are you doing, man?" he asked, laughing. "Sophia says you're having a showdown with security." "Just teaching a lesson in certainty, Scotty," the tall man, apparently definitely Michael Jordan, replied. Scotty. As in Scottie Pippen? Marcus felt lightheaded. "And who's this brave soul?" Pippen asked, eyeing Marcus with amusement. "Marcus Reeves," Jordan answered before Marcus could speak. First day on the job. Thompson told him no exceptions for entry without credentials. Pippen laughed. "And he stopped you? I like this kid already." He turned to the growing crowd. "Hey, everyone, MJ's going one-on-one with security." A cheer went up. Marcus saw phones raised, more people streaming in. Among them was Thompson, his face a mixture of horror and fascination. "Reeves," Thompson hissed, pulling Marcus aside. "Do you realize what you've done? That's Michael Jordan." "I'm beginning to understand that, sir," Marcus said, his voice surprisingly steady despite his racing heart. "You can still back out," Thompson offered. "Apologize. Let him in. Nobody would blame you." Marcus thought about it. About his father, who never backed down from a challenge. About his mother fighting illness with the same determination. About the medical bills that had brought him to this job in the first place. "No, sir," Marcus said firmly. "We have an agreement." Thompson stared at him in disbelief, then shook his head. "Your funeral, kid." The second time Thompson had said, "That. Maybe it would be." But as Marcus turned back to face the basketball legend, now removing his suit jacket and loosening his tie, he felt something unexpected. Not just fear, but a strange, wild kind of joy. Michael Jordan. The Michael Jordan rolled up his sleeves and picked up a basketball from a nearby rack. He bounced it once, twice, the familiar sound echoing through the suddenly hushed court. "One possession," Jordan said, his eyes locked on Marcus. "You ready?" Marcus took a deep breath and stepped onto the court. In the crowd, someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" Marcus wasn't sure himself, but as he bent his knees and raised his hands in a defensive stance, remembering moves his father had taught him in their driveway a lifetime ago, he knew one thing for certain. Ready or not, this moment was real. Jordan's eyes narrowed with that legendary competitive focus, and he began to dribble. "Show me what you've got, Marcus Reeves." The basketball felt alive in Jordan's hands, bouncing with a rhythm that seemed almost musical. In the hushed arena, Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as he settled into his defensive stance, knees bent, arms wide, just like his father had taught him during those long summer evenings in their driveway. "Remember, Marcus," his dad's voice echoed in his memory. "Good defense is about heart, not height." Jordan sized him up, his eyes calculating. The crowd around them had grown considerably. Event staff, security personnel, early arrivals for the charity gala, all forming a circle around the impromptu showdown. Marcus caught sight of Thompson watching nervously from the sideline, his clipboard clutched so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "Let's see what you've got," Jordan said again, beginning a slow, methodical dribble. The first move came without warning, a lightning-quick crossover that nearly sent Marcus stumbling. But he recovered, shifting his weight and staying in front of the basketball legend. "Not bad," Jordan nodded, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Most people bite on the first fake." Marcus didn't reply, focusing instead on Jordan's midsection. Another tip from his father. "Watch the hips, not the ball. The body can't lie." Jordan initiated a drive to the right, and Marcus moved quickly to cut him off. This earned a murmur of appreciation from the growing audience, including several former Bulls players who were now watching with interest. "I'm the you. Kid's got quick feet," someone who sounded like Dennis Rodman commented from the sideline. For a moment, Marcus forgot about the stakes, forgot about his job, the medical bills, the crowd. There was only this: the squeak of expensive shoes against polished hardwood, the rhythm of the dribble, and the chess match of movement and counter-movement. Jordan spun suddenly, a perfect pirouette that left Marcus momentarily flat-footed. But again, he recovered, sliding back into position just as Jordan pulled up for a jump shot. Marcus leaped, his arm extended, and felt the slightest brush of the ball against his fingertips. The shot missed. The crowd gasped. Jordan's eyes widened slightly, a flash of that legendary competitiveness igniting in them. "Okay, then," he said, retrieving the ball. "Let's really play." "Does that count as my stop?" Marcus asked, a hint of hope in his voice. Jordan laughed, a genuine appreciative sound. "Nice try. One possession means until I score or you take the ball away." He bounced the ball again. "We're just getting started." From the sideline, Scottie Pippen called out, "Don't hurt him, MJ. We need him in one piece for the event." This drew laughter from the crowd, but Marcus remained focused. Jordan was measuring him. Now, the way a master chef might consider an unexpectedly challenging ingredient. "You played ball?" Jordan asked, keeping his dribble alive. "Just high school. Second string," Marcus admitted, not taking his eyes off Jordan's midsection. "But you remember the fundamentals," Jordan observed. "Someone taught you well." "My dad." Jordan nodded, as if this explained everything. Then, without warning, he unleashed a series of moves so quick and fluid that they seemed to flow into one another like water. Crossover, behind the back, between the legs. Marcus scrambled to keep up, his sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Somehow, impossibly, he stayed in front of Jordan. A ripple of appreciation moved through the crowd. Even Jordan looked impressed. "What's your dad's name?" Jordan asked, never ceasing his dribble. "James Reeves," Marcus replied, trying to anticipate the next move. "He played?" "City League. Nothing special." Marcus felt a sudden lump in his throat. But he loved the game. Especially the Bulls. Especially you. Something shifted in Jordan's expression then. A softening. A recognition. For a split second, the competitive fire dimmed, replaced by something more contemplative. Then, it blazed back to life. "Well, let's see if he taught you how to defend this," Jordan said. He drove hard to the left, then spun back right so quickly that Marcus felt the breeze as Jordan blew past him. It seemed certain Jordan would score an easy layup, but Marcus recovered with a desperate lunge, somehow getting a hand on the ball as Jordan rose toward the basket. The ball rolled off Jordan's fingers, circled the rim, and fell out. The crowd erupted. Thompson's clipboard clattered to the floor. Scottie Pippen was doubled over with laughter. "Someone sign this kid!" Jordan retrieved the ball again, a new respect in his eyes. "You're full of surprises, Marcus." "Reeves?" "Just doing my job, sir," Marcus replied, though he couldn't keep a small smile from lifting the corner of his mouth. "Your dad would be proud," Jordan said quietly, so only Marcus could hear. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His stance wavered for just an instant as emotion washed over him. In that moment of vulnerability, Jordan struck. A drive, a head fake, and then the ball was leaving his hands in that perfect arcing shot that basketball fans worldwide would recognize instantly. The fadeaway. Marcus recovered and jumped with everything he had, his fingertips just grazing the ball as it left Jordan's hands. For a suspended moment, time seemed to slow as the orange sphere rotated through the air, describing a perfect parabola toward the basket. The ball hit the rim, circled once, twice, and then dropped through with a soft swish. The crowd erupted, in cheers and applause. Jordan landed lightly on his feet, nodding in satisfaction. But when he turned to Marcus, it wasn't with the triumphant gloating that might have been expected. Instead, there was respect in his eyes. "For what it's worth," Jordan said, extending his hand, "that's the best defense anyone's played on me in this building in years." Marcus shook the legend's hand, a curious mix of disappointment and pride washing over him. "Guess this means you're getting in, Mr. Jordan." Jordan laughed. "I think we're past Mr. Jordan, don't you? Call me Michael." From the side of the court, a harried-looking man in a suit rushed up, clutching a lanyard with credentials. "Mike, I'm so sorry. Traffic was impossible, and then the credentials weren't ready, and—" Jordan waved him off. "It's fine, Tony. Actually, it worked out perfectly." He turned back to Marcus. "Now I have my credentials, though I'm not sure I need them anymore." The crowd had begun to disperse, many people checking their watches and hurrying toward the main event area. The charity gala would be starting soon. Thompson approached, looking simultaneously impressed and terrified. "Mr. Jordan, sir, I can't apologize enough for the misunderstanding, he began. No apology necessary, Jordan cut him off. Your man was doing exactly what you told him to do. No exceptions, right? He flashed a grin at Marcus. Right, Thompson stammered. Jordan clapped a hand on Marcus's shoulder. In fact, I'd like to borrow him for the evening, as at my personal security. Thompson's eyes widened. Of course, Mr. Jordan. Whatever you need. As they began walking toward the main event hall, Jordan leaned closer to Marcus. That fadeaway at the end. You almost had it. Almost doesn't count for much, Marcus replied. On the contrary, Jordan said. Almost is everything. Almost is what separates good from great. Almost is what gets you up early and keeps you practicing late. He gave Marcus an appraising look. Some people never even get to almost. They paused at the entrance to the main hall, where guests in expensive attire were mingling, champagne glasses in hand. The charity auction items were displayed around the perimeter. Signed jerseys, vacation packages, exclusive experiences. Before we go in, Jordan said, his voice lowering, there's something I want to tell you. Marcus waited, wondering what wisdom the basketball legend might impart. Instead, Jordan leaned in close to Marcus's ear and whispered something no one else could hear. Marcus's eyes widened, his expression shifting from surprise to disbelief. Is that true? Marcus asked, his voice barely audible over the noise from the gala. Jordan just smiled enigmatically. Let's go raise some money for Chicago's kids, he said, patting the credentials now hanging around his neck. I believe I'm officially allowed in now. As they stepped into the glittering charity event together, Marcus found himself wondering what twist of fate had brought him here. From checking credentials to standing beside Michael Jordan in what felt like the blink of an eye. Whatever Jordan had whispered to him remained their secret, carried like the worn bull's keychain in Marcus's pocket, a weight both heavy and somehow comforting against his heart. As Marcus and Jordan entered the main event hall, the reaction was immediate. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Champagne. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Heads turned in perfect synchronization. It was as if a wave of recognition rippled through the crowd. Michael! MJ's here. Is that really him? Jordan raised a hand in greeting, his smile practiced but genuine. What seemed to confuse the onlookers, however, was the young security guard walking beside him like an equal. Who's that with Jordan? Isn't that the security guy from outside? What's going on? Sophia Washington, the charity director, hurried over. Her elegant black dress and pearl necklace contrasted with the look of controlled panic on her face. Mr. Jordan, we're so glad. You're finally here, she said, shooting a curious glance at Marcus. The program is already 20 minutes delayed. Donors are getting restless. Sorry about that, Sophia, Jordan replied smoothly. Had to clear up a small misunderstanding. He gestured to Marcus. This is Marcus Reeves. He'll be with me tonight. Sophia's eyebrows rose slightly, but she recovered quickly. Of course. Welcome, Mr. Reeves. She turned back to Jordan. We need you for the opening remarks. The auction items... Give me 2 minutes, Jordan interrupted gently. I need to make a quick call. Sophia nodded and hurried off, already speaking rapidly into her headset about adjusting the evening's schedule. Jordan turned to Marcus. Stay close. This is going to be an interesting night. Before Marcus could respond, a tall man with a distinctive mustache approached. Scottie Pippen, now dressed in a tailored suit. rather than the casual clothes he'd worn at the practice court. "Mike," Pippin said, grinning broadly. "Word's spreading about what happened at the practice court. Dennis is already showing people the video." "Video?" Marcus asked, his stomach dropping. Pippin nodded. "Someone recorded the whole thing. It's probably hitting social media right now." As if on cue, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out to find a text from his roommate. "Dude, is this you with Michael Jordan?" Attached was a link to a Twitter post that was already gathering thousands of likes and shares. "Great," Marcus muttered, shoving the phone back into his pocket. Jordan seemed amused. "Not ready for fame, Marcus?" "Not exactly what I expected from my first day on the job, sir." "Michael," Jordan corrected him. "Michael," Marcus repeated, the name feeling strange on his tongue. Across the room, Dennis Rodman was holding court, his hair dyed a vibrant purple for the occasion. He was showing something on his phone to a group of enthralled listeners, gesturing animatedly. As Marcus watched, Rodman looked up, caught his eye, and gave him a thumbs up. "Your Chicago Bulls welcome committee," Jordan commented dryly. "Before the night's over, every person in this room will know your name." Marcus wasn't sure if that was a good thing. He was just a security guard. Temporary security guard at that. His assignment had been simple: check credentials, keep unauthorized people out. Now he was standing next to Michael Jordan at an exclusive charity gala, and videos of their one-on-one challenge were spreading across the internet. "What if Thompson fires me?" Marcus worried aloud. Jordan scoffed. "For doing exactly what he told you to do? Not happening. Besides," he added, with a confident smile, "you work for me tonight, remember?" A photographer approached, camera raised questioningly. Jordan nodded permission, and several flashes captured the moment. The basketball legend and the security guard who'd stopped him, now standing side by side. Sophia returned, her headset slightly askew. "Mr. Jordan, we really need you now. The mayor is waiting to introduce you." "Coming," Jordan assured her. He turned to Marcus. "Like I said, stay close. This gets interesting." They made their way to the front of the room, where a small stage had been set up. The mayor of Chicago, a silver-haired woman with a commanding presence, stood at the podium. Her face lit up with relief when she spotted Jordan. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced into the microphone, "the moment you've all been waiting for. The man who put Chicago basketball on the map. Our own living legend. Michael Jordan." Applause thundered through the hall as Jordan stepped onto the stage. Marcus hung back, uncertain where he should position himself. Jordan solved this dilemma by motioning him forward. "Bring my security up too," Jordan said into the microphone, a playful glint in his eye. "He's earned it." Confused but curious applause followed as Marcus reluctantly joined Jordan on stage. The lights were blinding, the crowd a blur of expectant faces. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Jordan began. "Your generosity will help fund basketball programs for Chicago's youth. Programs that teach not just basketball skills, but life skills. Teamwork, perseverance, standing your ground when necessary." At this, he glanced sideways at Marcus with a knowing smile, drawing a murmur of laughter from those who had already heard about the incident at the east entrance. "Before we begin the auction, I want to share something that happened just an hour ago," Jordan continued. "This young man," he gestured to Marcus, "stopped me from entering my own event." The crowd gasped, then chuckled nervously. "No, Really? Jordan insisted. He demanded credentials. When I couldn't produce them, he stood his ground. Wouldn't let me in. More laughter, louder this time, tinged with disbelief. So I challenged him. One-on-one, one possession. If I scored, I got in. If he stopped me, Jordan paused for effect. Well, I'd have to wait outside like everyone else. The crowd was fully engaged now, leaning forward in their seats. And let me tell you, Jordan continued, he nearly stopped me. Played the best defense I've seen in years. Reminded me what this is all about. Heart, determination, giving your all even when the odds are against you. Marcus felt his cheeks burning as hundreds of eyes turned toward him. This wasn't what he'd expected when he'd put on his security uniform this morning. That's what tonight is about, Jordan concluded. Giving Chicago's kids a chance to find their heart, their determination, just like Marcus here did today. The applause that followed was deafening. Marcus stood awkwardly, unsure where to look or what to do with his hands. Jordan seemed to sense his discomfort and steered him gently off the stage as the mayor returned to the podium to begin the auction. "You didn't have to do that," Marcus said quietly as they rejoined the crowd. "Yes, I did," Jordan replied. "You'd be surprised how rarely people stand their ground these days, especially with celebrities. Everyone's so afraid of offending the wrong person that they forget to do what's right." A server approached with a tray of champagne glasses. Jordan took two, handed one to Marcus. "I don't drink on duty," Marcus said automatically. Jordan grinned. "Tonight, your duty is to enjoy yourself. Doctor's orders." "Doctor?" "Air Jordan, Doctor of Dunks," he replied with a wink. "But seriously, relax. The hard part's over." Marcus accepted the glass reluctantly. Across the room, he spotted Thompson watching them, his expression a mixture of confusion and awe. When Thompson caught Marcus looking, he gave a small nod that seemed to say, "You're okay, kid." Marcus's phone buzzed again. More texts, notifications pouring in. His mother had sent a message. "Is that really you on Twitter with Michael Jordan? What's happening?" "Should probably answer that," Jordan observed, glancing at the screen. "Family?" "My mom," Marcus confirmed, quickly typing a response. "Long story. Tell you later. I'm fine." "She proud of you?" Jordan asked. Marcus hesitated. "She worries. Been sick a while. I took this job to help with her medical bills." Something shifted. In Jordan's expression, a subtle change, a new understanding. He nodded, slowly, as if filing away this information for later. "Marcus Reeves," a voice called. They turned to see Scottie Pippen approaching with Dennis Rodman in tow. "The man of the hour." "Dude," Rodman said, his purple hair luminescent under the chandeliers. "That defense was tight. Almost had MJ shook." "Almost," Marcus agreed, echoing Jordan's earlier words. "I already got offers from 3 news stations wanting interviews," Rodman continued, waving his phone. "You're going viral, security man." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Interviews?" Jordan sensed his discomfort. "Give him some space, Dennis. It's still his first day on the job." As Rodman and Pippen moved on to greet other guests, Marcus took a deep breath. The room seemed to be spinning slightly, not from the champagne, which he'd barely sipped, but from the sheer unreality of the situation. "First days are usually boring," Jordan commented. "File paperwork, learn the coffee machine, stop. The greatest basketball player of all time from entering his own charity event. You know, the usual." Despite himself, Marcus laughed. Not exactly what I had in mind when I put on the uniform this morning. Life rarely goes as planned, Jordan said, his voice taking on a more reflective tone. Sometimes that's a good thing. As the auction began in earnest, with the mayor calling out increasingly extravagant bids for the charity items, Marcus couldn't help but wonder, was this a good thing? Or had he just complicated his already complicated life even further? The answer, like whatever Jordan had whispered to him earlier, remained to be seen. A mystery unfolding one unexpected moment at a time. The charity auction proceeded with the practiced rhythm of wealthy people opening their wallets for a good cause. Marcus watched, fascinated, as bid amounts quickly soared past what his mother's medical bills totaled for an entire year. For a signed pair of Air Jordans, the final bid reached $75,000. That's a lot of money for shoes, Marcus murmured. Jordan, standing beside him, chuckled. Not just shoes, memories. People aren't buying the object. They're buying what it represents. Marcus considered this as he watched a photograph of the 1998 championship team, signed by every player, sell for $120,000. What were memories worth? What price could you put on moments that shaped your life? His hand found the Bulls keychain in his pocket again, his father's prized possession. It wasn't worth anything monetarily, but he wouldn't trade it for all the signed memorabilia in the room. That keychain, Jordan said, noticing the movement. Tell me about it. Marcus hesitated, then pulled it out. The red leather was cracked and worn, the Bulls logo faded, but still recognizable. Dad got it the year you won your first championship, carried it everywhere. Jordan gently took it from Marcus's hand, examining it with unexpected reverence. The beginning of the dynasty, he said softly. Nobody thought we could do it back then. Dad believed, Marcus replied, never doubted for a second. Jordan handed the keychain back, his expression thoughtful. Chicago was different then. The whole city felt like one giant family during those years. I remember, Marcus said, surprising himself with the admission. I was just a kid, but I remember the energy, the celebrations after each championship, car horns honking all night, people dancing in the streets. You were at the celebrations? Marcus nodded. Dad would take me downtown every time, said it was history happening, and we needed to be part of it. Jordan's eyes lit up with genuine interest. Which one do you remember best? 97, Marcus answered without hesitation. After the Jazz series, the flu game was on a Tuesday, and Dad called in sick to work the next day because we stayed out so late celebrating. Jordan laughed. The whole city probably called in sick that Wednesday. Dad said it was worth it, Marcus continued, the memory flowing now. He said, some moments you have to witness, son. Some moments are bigger than jobs or rules or everyday life. He paused, a lump forming in his throat. I didn't really understand what he meant back then. And now? Jordan asked quietly. Marcus looked around the glittering event hall, at the Chicago legends mingling with the city's elite, at the impossible path that had brought him here. I'm beginning to. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only when Sophia Washington approached again, clipboard in hand. Mr. Jordan, you're scheduled to speak about the youth programs in 5 minutes. Jordan nodded. I'll be ready. As Sophia hurried off to manage some other aspect of the evening, Jordan turned back to Marcus. Where did your father watch the games? Usually at home. Couldn't afford tickets much. But for special games, there. Was this bar in our neighborhood? O'Malley's on 79th? Had a big projection screen. The whole neighborhood would crowd in. O'Malley's, Jordan repeated, his brow furrowing. Green awning? Shamrock on the sign? Marcus stared at him. You know it? Jordan's smile was enigmatic. Chicago's a big, small town. I know more than people think. He checked his watch. I need to get ready for this speech. Walk with me? They moved toward the stage area, weaving through clusters of Chicago's elite. Several people attempted to stop Jordan for a quick word or photo, but he smoothly deflected with a promise of later, never breaking stride. Your mom, Jordan said once they were relatively alone again. What's she sick with? The question caught Marcus off guard. Lupus. It's an autoimmune disease. Some days are good, others... He trailed off. The treatments are expensive. Which hospital? Chicago Memorial. Dr. Winters is her specialist. Jordan nodded, filing away this information with the same focus he brought to everything. Good doctor. Good hospital. Before Marcus could ask how Jordan knew Dr. Winters, they reached the side of the stage. Sophia handed Jordan a small stack of note cards, which he glanced at briefly before handing back. Won't need these, he said confidently. I know what matters tonight. Sophia looked nervous, but didn't argue. Years of experience had taught her that Michael Jordan did things his own way. Marcus, Jordan said, turning to him. Wait right here. I want you to hear this. With that, he stepped onto the stage, welcomed by enthusiastic applause. Marcus watched from the wings as Jordan took command of the room effortlessly, speaking about the importance of youth basketball programs in Chicago's underserved neighborhoods. Jordan shrugged, as if it were the most natural decision in the world. Seems like a community that understands basketball matters. It does, Marcus agreed, thinking of O'Malley's packed wall-to-wall during playoff games, of children playing on makeshift courts in alleys, of his father teaching him to dribble on cracked concrete. It really does. Good, Jordan said simply. Then it settled. As they rejoined the main event, Marcus found himself seeing Jordan in a new light. Not just as the basketball legend his father had idolized, but as someone who understood the profound connection between a game and a community, between memories and meaning. The Bulls' keychain in Marcus's pocket seemed to carry a different weight now, not just his father's past, but a neighborhood's future. As the evening continued around them, with champagne flowing and auction paddles raising, Marcus wondered what other surprises this improbable night might hold. The charity auction was in full swing, with well-dressed attendees raising paddles to bid on exclusive items. The auctioneer's rapid-fire speech echoed through the hall, punctuated by gasps and applause as bid amounts climbed ever higher. Next item, the auctioneer announced a weekend golf retreat with Michael Jordan at his private club. Starting bid, $50,000. Paddles shot up immediately. Marcus watched in amazement as the price quickly doubled, then tripled. Jordan observed with casual interest, occasionally nodding at familiar faces in the crowd. You play golf? Jordan asked Marcus. Never tried it, Marcus admitted. Not many golf courses in my neighborhood. We should change that, Jordan replied thoughtfully. Add it to the community program. Before Marcus could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A group of late arrivals was creating a stir, former Bulls teammates, making their grand entrance. Marcus recognized Steve Kerr, Tony Kukoc, and several others from his father's old VHS tapes. The cavalry's finally here, Jordan commented with a smile. The former teammates spotted Jordan and began making their way through the crowd. As they approached, their curious glances at Marcus made it clear that word of the earlier confrontation had spread. "So, this is the guy," Steve Kerr said, grinning as he extended his hand to Marcus. "The security guard with the guts to stop Michael Jordan." Marcus shook Kerr's hand, feeling increasingly surreal. "Just doing my job, sir." "Call me Steve," Kerr replied. "And from what I hear, you did more than just your job." Dennis showed us the video. Tony Kukoc joined them, his accent still thick despite years in Chicago. "Nice defense," he said to Marcus. "MJ doesn't praise opponents often." Marcus felt his face warming. It was just one possession. "One possession is all it takes sometimes," Jordan interjected. "Game 6, 98 finals. One possession changed everything." The former teammates nodded in solemn agreement, sharing the unspoken bond of those who had been there for the moment when Jordan had stolen the ball from Karl Malone and hit the championship-winning shot. Marcus was telling me about watching our games at O'Malley's on 79th, Jordan said, smoothly changing the subject. "O'Malley's!" Kukoc exclaimed. "I remember that place. Went there once after a game. They wouldn't let me pay for a single drink all night." Marcus couldn't hide his surprise. "You went to O'Malley's? My dad would have talked about that forever if he'd been there." "What was your dad's name again?" Jordan asked, though Marcus hadn't forgotten the careful way Jordan had filed away this information earlier. "James Reeves." Jordan glanced at his former teammates. "James Reeves. Anyone remember meeting him?" They shook their heads, but Kerr added, "We met so many fans during those years. Hard to remember every name." "Tall guy," Marcus offered. "Always wore a Red Bull's cap. Deep laugh you could hear across a room." Jordan's expression flickered, with something unreadable. Before he could respond, Sophia. Washington approached their circle, looking increasingly frazzled. "Mr. Jordan, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation with the final auction item." "What's wrong?" Jordan asked. "The signed game shoes from your last championship. They're missing." A murmur rippled through the nearby guests who overheard. Jordan remained calm, but Marcus noticed his jaw tighten slightly. "When were they last seen?" "During setup this afternoon," Sophia replied. "Security has been searching, but—" Her eyes flicked nervously toward Marcus, then away. Jordan caught the look. "Marcus has been with me all evening. If you're implying—" No, Sophia backpedaled quickly. "It's just that, well, security is responsible for watching the items." "I'll help look," Marcus offered, grateful for a chance to do something useful, something that actually fell within his job description. Jordan nodded. "Good. I'll come too." He turned to his former teammates. "Keep the bidders happy. Tell them we're adding something special to make up for the delay." As they moved away from the main auction area, Jordan spoke quietly to Marcus. "You know, they're suspicious of you, right?" "Makes sense," Marcus replied pragmatically. "New guy, no experience, suddenly hanging out with Michael Jordan instead of watching the merchandise." "You're not worried?" Marcus shrugged. "I know I didn't take anything. That's what matters." Jordan studied him with renewed interest. "Most people would be panicking right now." "Panicking doesn't help find missing shoes," Marcus said simply. They reached the display area where the most valuable items were kept. Several security guards, Marcus's colleagues for all of one day, were already searching. Thompson was among them, his face tense with stress. "Mr. Jordan," Thompson said, nodding respectfully before turning a cooler gaze on Marcus. "Reeves, any leads?" Jordan asked. "We're reviewing security footage now," Thompson replied. "The shoes were definitely here during final setup at 5:30. By 7, when we did the pre-event check, they were gone." Marcus thought back to his own schedule. "I was at the east entrance during that time. Didn't see anything unusual." Thompson's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held doubt. "The east entrance is close to this display area. Anyone coming or going would have passed you." The implication hung in the air. Marcus felt a twinge of anger, but kept his voice level. "I checked everyone's credentials, just like you told me to. No exceptions." "Except for Mr. Jordan," Thompson pointed out. "That was different," Marcus began, but Jordan interrupted. "Let's focus on finding the shoes, not assigning blame," he said firmly. "Where else have you looked?" As Thompson detailed the search efforts, Marcus's mind worked through the problem logically. If the shoes were taken between 5:30 and 7 and if they hadn't left through the east entrance, what about staff? Marcus suggested caterers, technicians, anyone who would have legitimate access and wouldn't seem out of place moving items around. Thompson frowned. "We vetted all staff thoroughly." "Still worth checking," Jordan said, supporting Marcus's idea. "And what about the other exits? Loading dock, kitchen entrance?" "Being reviewed now," Thompson confirmed, his professional tone returning as he focused on the problem rather than potential suspects. As they discussed possibilities, Marcus noticed a maintenance door slightly ajar in the corner of the room. It wasn't dramatic, just a door not quite latched, but security training had taught him to notice such details. "What's through there?" he asked, pointing. Thompson followed his gaze. "Storage closet, for cleaning supplies." "Has anyone checked it?" Thompson's expression suggested he thought it was a waste of time, but he nodded to another guard who moved to investigate. The guard opened the door, reached for the light switch, and then froze. "Sir," he called to Thompson, "you might want to see this." Thompson, Jordan, and Marcus crowded around the doorway. There, propped against a mop bucket, was a shoebox with the distinctive Jordan logo. "Well, I'll be damned," Thompson muttered. The guard carefully retrieved the box and opened it, revealing the game-worn Air Jordans, still signed with Jordan's flowing autograph. Why would someone hide them here instead of taking them? Marcus wondered aloud. Jordan had a theory. Maybe they were interrupted before they could leave with them. Or maybe... He examined the shoes more closely. Maybe this was never about stealing them. "What do you mean?" Thompson asked. "Look," Jordan pointed to the signature. "It's smudged, not how I left it." Thompson and Marcus leaned in. Sure enough, the once crisp signature was now slightly blurred, as if someone had touched it while the ink was still drying. They were trying to get DNA, Marcus realized suddenly. Your DNA, from a fresh autograph. Jordan looked at him, eyebrows raised in surprise. "That's actually a good theory." "Celebrity DNA is a thing now," Marcus explained. "People sell it online, claim they can clone celebrities or make weird memorabilia with genetic material. My roommate read an article about it." Thompson was already on his radio, instructing security to review footage of everyone who had access to the shoes during setup. Focus on anyone who handled the display items, especially the shoes, he ordered. As the investigation shifted into high gear, Jordan pulled Marcus aside. "Quick thinking," he said. "You've got good instincts." "Just connecting dots," Marcus replied modestly. The day continued with exhibition games featuring the Bulls legends playing alongside neighborhood children. Marcus participated too, coaching more than playing, helping the kids hold their own against basketball icons. The joy on their faces as they dribbled past Scottie Pippen, who was obviously letting them win, or made a shot over Steve Kerr's token defense, was everything Marcus had hoped for when planning the program. Late in the afternoon, as the festivities began winding down, Jordan found Marcus sitting alone on the bleachers, watching a group of children continuing to play on the new court. "How does it feel?" Jordan asked, sitting beside him. "Surreal," Marcus admitted. "6 months ago, I was worried about making rent. Now," he gestured to the thriving scene before them. "Life changes fast sometimes," Jordan said, echoing his words from that first night. For the better, Marcus completed the exchange. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the children play. Then Jordan reached into his pocket and produced a small box. "Almost forgot," he said, handing it to Marcus. "A dedication gift." Marcus opened the box to find a key, an ordinary house key attached to a familiar Red Bull's keychain, his father's keychain, the one he had traded to Jordan 6 months ago. "I had it restored," Jordan explained. "The leather was falling apart." Indeed, the keychain looked renewed, the cracked leather repaired, the faded Bulls logo restored to its original vibrant red. But it was unmistakably the same one his father had carried for years, the same one that had been visible in the photograph from O'Malley's. "The key is to your new office here," Jordan added. "You'll be spending more time on site now that the Eater court is open." Marcus turned the keychain over in his hand, marveling at the journey it had taken. From his father to him, from him to Jordan, and now back again, transformed but still carrying its history. "Thank you," he said simply, knowing Jordan would understand the depth of gratitude behind those inadequate words. Jordan nodded, then stood to leave. "Your father changed a tire and asked for nothing in return," he said reflectively. "You stopped me at a door and stood your ground. Small moments, big ripples." He gestured to the children playing on the court. "Who knows what might come from this?" As Jordan walked away, pausing to high-five the children and pose for a few final photographs, Marcus remained on the bleachers, the restored keychain in his hand. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the new court. In those shadows, Marcus could almost see the outline of his father, tall man, Red Bull's cap, watching with pride, as neighborhood children played on a court that bore his name. "You were right, Dad," Marcus whispered. "Basketball is more than just a game." And somewhere between memory and presence, between past and future, between what was lost and what had been found, Marcus felt his father's answer, not in words, but in the laughter of children playing. On a court that existed because a security guard had once stopped Michael Jordan from entering his own event. 1 year to the day after Marcus had stopped Michael Jordan at the United Center's East entrance, the James Reeves Community Court was celebrating its 6-month anniversary. What had begun as a single court had evolved into a thriving community hub, with daily basketball clinics, tutoring programs, and mentorship opportunities that had already touched hundreds of lives. Marcus arrived early that morning, unlocking the center's door with the key attached to his father's restored Bulls keychain. The familiar weight in his hand still brought a smile to his face. Inside, he moved through his morning routine, checking the schedule board, reviewing the day's activities, ensuring everything was ready for the special anniversary celebration planned for that afternoon. His office, a modest space with large windows overlooking the court, had become a second home. Photos lined the walls, not just Bulls memorabilia, but images of neighborhood kids playing on the court, newspaper clippings about the program's success, and at the center, the photograph of his father and himself at O'Malley's during the flu game. Marcus settled at his desk, opening his laptop to review the quarterly report he'd been preparing for the Jordan Brand Foundation. The numbers were impressive. Over 350 children regularly participating in programs, attendance up 15% at local schools, and a measurable decrease in juvenile incidents in the surrounding neighborhood. But numbers didn't tell the whole story. Marcus thought about Jamal, a 12-year-old who had arrived angry and withdrawn, now thriving as a peer leader. Or Sophia, a quiet girl who had discovered her voice through the center's public speaking workshop. Or the elderly neighbors, who used the court for morning Tai Chi classes when the kids were in school. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Don't forget I'm bringing the special cupcakes for today. Love you." Grace had become the center's unofficial court mom, volunteering 3 days a week despite still managing her lupus. Her health had stabilized with proper treatment, and the center gave her purpose, a way to honor James's memory by supporting the community he had loved. Marcus texted back a quick thank you, then checked his other messages. One from Jordan caught his eye. "Flying in for the celebration. Have something special to discuss." In the years since their first encounter, Marcus's relationship with Jordan had evolved from starstruck amazement to genuine professional respect. They spoke regularly about the program, with Jordan remaining actively involved despite his many other business ventures. Still, his personal appearance at today's small neighborhood celebration was unexpected. A knock at the office door interrupted Marcus's thoughts. Thompson, his former supervisor from Premier Security, stood in the doorway, now dressed in casual clothes rather than his security uniform. "Morning, Reeves," Thompson greeted him. "Just dropped off the security plan for today. Expecting a good turnout?" Marcus nodded. "Whole neighborhood, probably. Jordan's coming, too." Thompson whistled. "Still can't believe how your first day with us turned out. Talk about failing upward." They both laughed at what had become a running joke between them. After the initial excitement of that night had faded, Thompson had approached Marcus with unexpected humility, acknowledging that his no-exceptions policy had inadvertently changed Marcus's life. "Still thankful for your strict training," Marcus replied with a smile. "Standing my ground that night was the best career move I never planned to make." As Thompson left to brief his security team, Marcus turned his attention to the court outside his window, where the first of the morning basketball clinics was beginning. Coach Wilson, a retired high school basketball coach from the neighborhood, was drilling a group of middle schoolers on defensive footwork. "Low stance, active hands, watch the hips, not the ball," Coach Wilson called out instructions that echoed James Reeves's teachings from decades earlier. Marcus watched one boy in particular, Dion, a lanky 13-year-old with natural athletic ability, but a tendency to lose focus. Today, though, something was different. Dion was fully engaged, mirroring the coach's movements with precision, his face a mask of concentration. When Dion successfully defended against a drive to the basket, stopping the offensive player without fouling, Coach Wilson's approval was immediate. "That's it, Dion. Perfect position." The pride on Dion's face resonated with Marcus, reminding him of his own sense of accomplishment when he had successfully defended against Jordan's initial moves during their first one-on-one challenge. Small victories, building blocks of confidence, the invisible lessons that extended beyond basketball. Marcus's phone rang. Alan Parker, still his mentor at Jordan Brand. "Morning, Marcus. Just checking in before the festivities. Everything set on your end?" "All good," Marcus confirmed, though Jordan just texted he's flying in. Wasn't expecting that. "Ah," Alan replied, a hint of something in his voice. "He mentioned he might. There's been some discussion at headquarters about the program's next phase." "Next phase?" Marcus questioned. "We're still implementing phase 1. "Let's talk when I get there," Alan said. "But let's just say your success hasn't gone unnoticed. The other sites are looking to your model for guidance." After they hung up, Marcus pondered what Alan had meant. The community courts program had always been envisioned as 50 courts, across Chicago's underserved neighborhoods. 5 were currently operational, with 5 more under construction. Was there something more in the works? The morning passed quickly, filled with preparations for the afternoon celebration. Local. Businesses donated food, neighbors brought folding chairs from home, and children created handmade decorations that now adorned the community center walls. By noon, the atmosphere was festive. Music played from speakers set up around the Evu court. The aroma of barbecue filled the air, and the neighborhood had turned out in force, even patience. From Chicago Memorial Hospital had been transported over in a special van, including several who had been in treatment alongside Grace during her most difficult days. Marcus moved through the crowd, greeting people by name, ensuring everything ran smoothly. He was so absorbed in his responsibilities that he didn't immediately notice the black SUV pulling up outside the center's gates. "Marcus!" called one of the younger children, tugging at his sleeve. "Michael Jordan is here." Sure enough, Jordan was stepping out of the vehicle, accompanied by Scottie Pippen and, surprisingly, the mayor of Chicago. A small security detail kept a respectful distance as the trio made their way toward the court. Marcus met them at the entrance, shaking hands with the familiar ease that still occasionally surprised him. "Didn't know you were bringing the mayor," he said to Jordan. "Some announcements are better with official backing," Jordan replied cryptically. "We'll talk after the ceremony." The formal part of the celebration was brief, but meaningful. Local, children performed a dance routine they had choreographed themselves. Coach Wilson presented awards to kids who had shown exceptional improvement. Grace Reeves spoke movingly about her late partner's love for basketball and community. When it came time for Marcus to speak, he kept his remarks simple. "1 year ago today, I was just a security guard doing my job. I had no idea that stopping Michael Jordan at a door would lead to all of this." He gestured around at the thriving community space. "My father always said basketball was more than a game." He was right. It's a connector, a builder, a bridge between people who might otherwise never meet. The applause was warm and genuine, the appreciation of a community that had embraced not just the physical court, but the spirit behind it. Jordan spoke next, his commanding presence naturally drawing attention. "When we started the Community Courts program, we had a vision of what it could be. Marcus Reeves and this community have exceeded that vision." He nodded toward the mayor, "which is why today we're announcing an expansion." The mayor stepped forward. The city of Chicago is proud to partner with the Jordan Brand Foundation to expand the Community Courts program from 50 courts to 100, across every underserved neighborhood in our city. A cheer went up from the crowd, but Jordan wasn't finished. "Additionally," he continued, "we're launching a national initiative taking the model developed here at the James Reeves Community Court and implementing it in 10 cities across the country. This announcement drew gasps and then enthusiastic applause. Marcus looked at Jordan in shock, but the basketball legend merely nodded, confirming that yes, this was real. To lead this expanded initiative, Jordan added, we need someone who understands both the vision and the practical details of implementation. Someone who has proven they can build connections across communities. He turned directly to Marcus. Marcus Reeves has been promoted to National Director of the Community Courts Program, effective immediately. The neighborhood erupted in cheers. Grace was the first to reach Marcus, embracing him with tears in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered. As the celebration continued around them, Jordan pulled Marcus aside for a private word. "There's more," he said, leading him toward the SUV. "Something I wanted to show you first." From the vehicle, Jordan's assistant retrieved a large, flat package wrapped in protective material. Jordan carefully unwrapped it to reveal a framed basketball jersey. Not a Bulls jersey, but a custom-made one in the colors of the Community Courts Program, with Reeves printed on the back above the number 23. "This will hang in every community court center we build," Jordan explained, "alongside my jersey and the local heroes for each community. A reminder that sometimes the most important defensive move is standing your ground when it matters." Marcus stared at the jersey in disbelief. His name, Jordan's number, a symbol that would connect communities across the country. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "You don't need to say anything," Jordan replied. "Just keep doing what you're doing, building bridges, making connections, honoring your father's vision." As they rejoined the celebration, Marcus was immediately surrounded by neighborhood kids, eager to hear about the expansion. He answered their questions with growing confidence, already envisioning how the program might work in other cities, other communities. Later, as the event began winding down, Marcus found a quiet moment to sit on the bleachers, overlooking the court. The space was still filled with neighbors chatting, children playing informal games, volunteers cleaning up. The community had truly made it their own. He pulled his father's restored keychain from his pocket, running his thumb over the Bulls logo that had connected their lives in ways neither could have imagined. The key to his office, now his former office, given his promotion, gleamed in the late afternoon sun. From this spot, he could see O'Malley's green awning just down the street. The bar had enjoyed a surge in business after Jordan's surprise visit a year ago, becoming something of a local landmark. O'Malley had even renovated the place, adding a Bulls corner with memorabilia and photographs, including one of Marcus defending Jordan during their famous encounter. His mother approached, sitting beside him on the bleachers. "Quite a day," she said, her voice tired but happy. "Hard to believe it's been a year," Marcus replied. Grace looked out at the court, where Dayon was now teaching a younger child the defensive stance he had perfected earlier. "Your father used to say that kindness travels in circles," she remarked. "That what you put into the world eventually finds its way back." Marcus nodded, thinking of the tire his father had changed on a rainy night in 1990, the door he himself had guarded on his first day as a security officer, and all that had flowed from those seemingly small moments. "The national program," Grace continued. "Will you have to move away?" "Some travel," Marcus acknowledged. "But Chicago will always be headquarters. This court will always be home base." Grace smiled, relieved. "Good, because this community needs you." She paused, then added softly, "I need you too." "I'm not going anywhere, Mom," Marcus assured her. "Just expanding the circle." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the James Reeves Community Court, Marcus thought about circles, how they connected, how they expanded, how they brought people back to places they needed to be. His father's keychain, Jordan's jersey number, the perfect arc of a basketball moving through space. The circle of community that had formed around this court, the wider circles that would now form in cities across the country. Different sizes, different contexts, but all connected by the same essential truth his father had recognized all those years ago. Basketball was more than a game. It was a bridge across time and circumstance, connecting a security guard's first day on the job to a national program that would touch thousands of lives. And at the center of those expanding circles was a simple act: standing your ground when it mattered, changing a tire on a rainy night, believing in the power of connection. As darkness fell and the court lights came on, illuminating the space for evening activities, Marcus felt his father's presence more strongly than ever, not as a ghost or a memory, but as a continuing influence, a thread woven through the fabric of all that was unfolding. The journey that had begun with no exceptions at the United Center's east entrance had led here to expanding circles of possibility. And wherever it led next, Marcus knew one thing for certain: he would honor the connections that had made it possible, one basketball court at a time. 1 year and 6 months after that fateful night at the United Center, Marcus Reeves stood in front of a freshly constructed basketball court in the South Bronx. The familiar Bulls logo had been replaced by stylized community symbols, but the core design remained the same: a high-quality court surrounded by bleachers, adjacent to a community center offering programs beyond basketball. "What do you think?" asked Jamal, the local program director Marcus had personally selected and trained over the past 3 months. "It's perfect," Marcus replied, echoing the words he had spoken at the opening of his father's namesake court in Chicago. "The community is going to love it." In the 18 months since his promotion to national director, Marcus had overseen the opening of community courts in 7 cities: Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Baltimore, and, now, New York. Each location maintained the core principles developed at the James Reeves Community Court while adapting to local needs and culture. His phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "Court looks great in the photos. See you in Chicago." Tomorrow, for the anniversary gala, the second anniversary of the night that had changed everything was approaching, and Jordan Brand had organized a fundraising gala at the United Center to support the continued expansion of the program. All the key players from that night would be there: Jordan himself, Scottie Pippen, Thompson, Sophia Washington, Dr. Reynolds, and of course, Grace Reeves. "You heading back to Chicago tonight?" Jamal asked as they walked through the community center, checking final preparations for the upcoming opening ceremony. "Early morning flight," Marcus confirmed. "Need to make sure everything's perfect for the gala." "Man, 2 years," Jamal shook his head in wonder. "From security guard to national director. Still can't believe that story." Marcus smiled. The BU journey did seem unbelievable at times, even to him. What had begun as a simple case of mistaken identity had cascaded into a nationwide initiative changing thousands of lives. The original Chicago court alone had served over 1,200 children in its first 18 months, with documented improvements in academic performance, decreased truancy, and reduced juvenile crime in the surrounding neighborhood. "Not about me," Marcus reminded him. "It's about the connections we build, the bridges between communities." Yeah, I know the speech," Jamal replied good-naturedly. "Still a hell of a story, though." After ensuring everything was ready for the Bronx courts, opening the following week, Marcus headed back to his hotel to pack. His life now involved constant travel. A week in Chicago, 2 weeks on the road, back to headquarters for planning, then out again to oversee new sites or check on established ones. The hotel room was comfortable but impersonal, one of dozens he'd stayed in over the past year. He'd become efficient at living this way. A suitcase always half-packed, toiletries in travel sizes, important documents scanned and stored digitally. The only constant companion was his father's restored bull's keychain, now attached to a small photo holder containing pictures of his mother and the original Chicago court. As Marcus packed, his phone rang, his mother calling for their nightly check-in. "How's New York?" Grace asked after they'd exchanged greetings. "Busy, loud, perfect for the program," Marcus replied. "The Bronx site looks great. Jamal's got everything under control." "He reminds me of you," Grace observed. "That same focus you had when the Chicago court was opening." "Higher compliment for him than for me," Marcus joked. "He actually knows basketball. I just got lucky with a good defensive stance." "Wasn't luck," Grace countered, as she always did when Marcus downplayed his role. "It was character. Standing your ground when it would have been easier not to." The conversation shifted to preparations for the anniversary gala. Grace had become an unofficial ambassador for the program, often speaking at events about the impact on communities and families. Her health remained stable, the foundation's medical support, ensuring she received the best possible care. "Oh, before I forget," Grace said before they hung up, "something interesting came in the mail today. An envelope from the Bulls organization. I didn't open it since it's addressed to you, but it looks official." "Probably just paperwork for the gala," Marcus suggested. "I'll look at it when I get back, tomorrow." After saying goodbye, Marcus finished packing and set his alarm for the early flight. As he drifted toward sleep, his mind wandered through the events of the past 2 years, from checking credentials at the East entrance to overseeing a national program, from worrying about rent payments to helping shape urban policy. The journey had transformed not just his career, but his understanding of his father's wisdom. Basketball wasn't just a game. It was a vehicle for something much larger: community, connection, opportunity. The courts they built weren't just places to play. They were spaces where lives changed direction, where futures expanded, where bridges formed between disparate worlds. The next morning found Marcus back in Chicago, the familiar skyline greeting him as his flight descended. Despite all his travels, this city still felt like home. Its rhythms and energy, its history and potential, all intertwined with his own story. He took a cab directly to his mother's apartment, eager to see her before the preparations for the evening's gala consumed his attention. Grace welcomed him with a warm embrace, looking healthier and more vibrant than she had in years. "The mysterious envelope," she said, after they'd settled in the living room, handing him a large manila package with the Bulls logo emblazoned on the front. Marcus examined it curiously. It was indeed addressed to him, with the official Bulls headquarters as the return address. He opened it carefully, pulling out a letter on Bulls letterhead and another, smaller envelope that looked much older. The letter was brief but formal. "Dear Mr. Reeves, During a comprehensive digitization of our historical archives, we discovered the enclosed envelope that we believe belongs to you. It appears to have been misplaced shortly after receipt and was recently found during our cataloging process. We apologize for the delay in delivering this item and hope it finds you well. Sincerely, Chicago Bulls Historical Archives Department. Marcus set the letter aside and picked up the smaller envelope. It was yellowed with age, addressed simply to Marcus Reeves with no delivery address. The postmark was faded, but still legible. June 15, 1998, the day after the Bulls had won their 6th championship, and the day before his father had died in the car accident. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, careful not to tear the delicate paper. Inside was a single sheet of stationery, folded around what appeared to be a small newspaper clipping and a ticket stub. He unfolded the letter first, immediately recognizing his father's handwriting. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, something important has happened. I've been thinking about the future. Lately. Yours especially. You're only 10, but already I see in you a strength that goes beyond basketball or any game. You stand your ground. You know what matters. I've enclosed a ticket stub from Game 6 of the finals and a clipping from tomorrow's Tribune. My friend at the paper let me see the layout early. Jordan's last shot as a Bull. The perfect ending. I want you to have these because someday they'll remind you that even the greatest journeys have moments where everything hangs in the balance, where one person has to stand their ground when it matters most. Basketball has given us Chicago something special, not just championships, but connection. Remember that, son. The game is just the beginning. The real magic is in how it brings people together, how it bridges worlds that might never otherwise meet. I have a feeling our paths will cross with Michael Jordan's again someday. Call it a father's intuition. When that day comes, remember what I've taught you. Keep your stance low. Watch. The hips, not the ball. And never back down when it matters. I'm proud of you, Marcus. Whatever comes next, whatever path you choose, carry that pride with you. Love always, Dad. Marcus stared at the letter, reading it a second time, then a third. His father had written this 27 years ago, the day before his death, somehow, anticipating a connection that wouldn't fully form until decades later. "What is it?" Grace asked, noticing his stunned expression. Wordlessly, Marcus handed her the letter. As she read, tears formed in her eyes. "He knew," she whispered. Somehow, he knew. Marcus examined the newspaper clipping. The famous photograph of Jordan's final shot as a Bull, the push-off against Byron Russell, the ball sailing through the air toward its destiny. The ticket stub was from the same game, a little worn but perfectly preserved, protected by the envelope all these years. This was meant to come to me after he died, Marcus realized aloud, but it got lost in the Bulls' archives somehow. "Until now," Grace said, her voice thick with emotion. "Until exactly the right moment." They sat in silence for a while, absorbing the extraordinary timing of this message from the past. James Reeves had written about paths crossing with Jordan's, about standing ground when it mattered, about basketball being just the beginning of something larger, all before the events that would make these words seem prophetic. "I need to show this to Jordan," Marcus said finally. "Tonight, at the gala." The United Center looked different from the night Marcus had stood guard at its east entrance. 2 years earlier, now transformed for the anniversary gala, its familiar basketball court had been covered and replaced with elegant tables, a stage for presentations and displays, highlighting the community courts program's achievements. Marcus arrived early, the letter from his father securely in his jacket pocket. He moved through pre-event preparations with practiced ease, checking arrangements and greeting staff, but his mind remained fixed on the message that had crossed decades to reach him on this particular day. Jordan arrived shortly before the event began, accompanied by his usual entourage, but breaking away to find Marcus as soon as he entered. "There he is," Jordan said warmly, clasping Marcus's hand. The man who stopped Michael Jordan. It had become their standard greeting, a light-hearted acknowledgement of how their unlikely connection had begun. "Need to show you something," Marcus said, keeping his voice low. "In private, before everything starts." Jordan nodded, curiosity evident in his expression. They moved to a quiet corner of the venue, away from the increasing flow of arriving guests. Marcus withdrew the letter and handed it to Jordan. "This came today. It was written by my father the day before he died, 27 years ago." Jordan, read the letter carefully, his expression shifting from curiosity to amazement. When he finished, he looked up at Marcus with new understanding. "I have a feeling our paths will cross with Michael Jordan's again someday," Jordan quoted. From the letter, he wrote this in 1998. "The day after your last championship with the Bulls," Marcus confirmed, "the day before his accident." Jordan shook his head in wonder. "And it got lost in the Bulls' archives until today, the second anniversary of when you stopped me at the door." "Can't explain it," Marcus admitted, "but it feels meant to be," Jordan finished for him. "Like everything that's happened was somehow part of a larger design." They stood in silence for a moment, both contemplating the extraordinary convergence of events. A tire changed on a rainy night in 1990, a letter written in 1998, a security check in 2023, all connecting across decades to create something neither could have imagined. "Your father was right," Jordan said finally, handing the letter back to Marcus. "The game is just the beginning. The real magic is in the connections." The gala itself was a celebration not just of the night that had sparked the community courts program, but of everything that had flowed from that moment. Political figures mingled with basketball legends, corporate donors chatted with community leaders, and children from the original Chicago court performed a basketball skills demonstration that brought the crowd to its feet. When it came time for speeches, Marcus stood at the podium and shared the story of his father's letter for the first time publicly. The room fell silent as he read James Reeves's decades-old words, now imbued with an almost mystical quality given all that had transpired. "My father wrote about basketball being more than a game," Marcus concluded. "About it bridging worlds that might never otherwise meet. Looking around this room tonight, seeing NBA legends alongside neighborhood kids, corporate CEOs talking with community organizers, doctors and security guards, and basketball coaches all united by a shared vision, I know he was right." The applause that followed was heartfelt. When Jordan took the stage next, he built upon Marcus's words. 2 years ago, a security guard stopped me from entering my own charity event," he began, drawing appreciative laughter from the crowd. "It should have been a minor inconvenience, a moment quickly forgotten. Instead, it became the catalyst for a national program that has already changed thousands of lives." Jordan gestured toward Marcus. "That security guard stood his ground when it would have been easier not to. His father, 27 years ago, changed a tire for a frustrated basketball player after a tough loss, asking nothing in return. Small moments, seemingly unconnected, separated by decades, yet together they created something none of us could have imagined. As the evening continued, Marcus found himself at the center of a circle of connections. His mother sharing stories with Bulls legends, Thompson discussing security protocols with venue staff, children from the program chatting excitedly with potential donors. The bridges his father had written about were forming before his eyes, spanning differences in background, experience, and opportunity. Later, as the gala wound down, Marcus stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The Chicago skyline glittered against the night sky, the same view he had seen 2 years ago when leaving the United Center with Jordan after their first encounter. He took out his father's letter again, reading it in the soft light spilling from the venue's entrance. The words seemed to pulse with renewed meaning, not just a message from the past, but a guide for the future. "Thought I might find you out here," Jordan's voice came from behind him. "Some things need processing away from the crowd." Marcus nodded, carefully refolding the letter. "Just thinking about circles, how they complete themselves in ways we don't expect." "Your father would be proud," Jordan said, echoing words he had spoken 2 years earlier on the practice court. "Not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you've become." As they stood in comfortable silence, the Chicago night enfolding them, Marcus felt the weight of his father's keychain in his pocket, restored, renewed, yet still carrying its history. Like the program itself, like the connections that had formed across time and circumstance, it was both old and new, both familiar and evolving. What had begun as a simple case of mistaken identity had revealed itself to be something far more profound, a convergence of paths that James Reeves had somehow foreseen from decades away. A circle completing itself through basketball, through community, through the courage to stand one's ground when it mattered most. And as Marcus prepared to return to the celebration, to the program that now reached across the country, changing lives one court at a time, he knew that the journey wasn't ending. It was expanding, like ripples from a stone dropped in still water, touching shores he couldn't yet see, but could already sense waiting in the distance. The third anniversary of the night that had changed everything dawned clear and crisp. In Chicago, Marcus Reeves stood at his father's grave, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the cemetery. 3 years since that fateful encounter at the United Center's east entrance. 5 years since he had last visited this quiet plot of earth. The headstone was simple. James Reeves, 1960 to 1998. Basketball is more than a game. Marcus had added the epitaph when he could finally afford to replace the plain marker the city had, provided after the accident. Now it seemed prophetic, a statement that had defined not just his father's life, but the unexpected journey of his own. Marcus knelt, placing a small framed photograph against the headstone. It showed the national team of community courts directors, 15 men and women from cities across America, all standing on basketball courts that had become centers of transformation in their neighborhoods. In the center of the group, Marcus held a basketball emblazoned with the program's logo. "Thought you'd want to see this, Dad," Marcus said quietly. 100 courts now, 10,000 kids in the program, all because you changed a tire on a rainy night and taught me to stand my ground. The program had expanded beyond anyone's initial expectations. What had begun as a Chicago initiative had spread nationwide, attracting corporate sponsors, government support, and increasingly, international attention. Marcus now oversaw operations that stretched from coast to coast, with plans for expansion into Canada and Mexico in the coming year. His personal life had transformed as well. No longer the struggling security guard worried about making rent, he now owned a comfortable condo in Chicago and maintained a small apartment in New York, where the program's national office had been established. His mother's health had stabilized, allowing her to travel occasionally, visiting community courts across the country as the program's honorary grandmother. Most significantly, Marcus had found his purpose, not just a job or career, but a calling that connected to his father's legacy in ways he could never have imagined that night at the United Center. The letter that had arrived on the second anniversary had only confirmed what he had already come to understand. Some connections transcended time, weaving through lives in patterns too complex to discern until viewed from a distance. From his pocket, Marcus removed the worn bull's keychain. His father's, then Jordan's, now his again. After 3 years of constant handling, the restored leather showed signs of new wear, creating a perfect circle of time. What had been old became new, then aged again with purpose. "I'm trading this in today," Marcus told his father's headstone, "not giving it up, just passing it forward." He placed the keychain beside the photograph, then reached into his other pocket for its replacement. A new keychain bearing the community court's logo. The symbolic exchange felt right, a tangible representation of how his father's legacy had evolved into something larger. "The program's taking on a life of its own now," Marcus continued, feeling the cool morning breeze brush against his face. "Kids who started with us in Chicago 3 years ago are becoming junior coaches. Some are getting college scholarship offers. One court, one community at a time, just like you'd have wanted." As he spoke, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. "Cars waiting whenever you're ready. MJ." Even after 3 years, the casual communication with Michael Jordan occasionally struck Marcus as surreal. Their relationship had evolved from icon and fan to colleagues and eventually friends, bound by a shared vision and the strange synchronicity that had brought them together. "Got to go, Dad," Marcus said, rising to his feet. "Big day today." Trudy touched the headstone one last time, then walked through the quiet cemetery toward the black SUV waiting at the entrance. The vehicle was familiar, the same model that had brought him home that first night, though not the same car. Jordan sat in the back, dressed casually in jeans and a sport coat, window lowered as Marcus approached. "Everything good?" Jordan asked as Marcus slid into the seat beside him. "All good," Marcus confirmed. "Just needed a moment before today's event." Jordan nodded, understanding without needing explanation. Some conversations need to happen in person. The driver pulled away from the cemetery, heading toward the south side and the James Reeves Community Court. Today marked not just the 3-year anniversary of Marcus and Jordan's first encounter, but also a significant evolution in the program itself. "Nervous?" Jordan asked as they approached the familiar neighborhood. "A little," Marcus admitted. "It's a big step." "It's the right step," Jordan assured him. "The program's ready. You're ready." They arrived at the community court to find it already bustling with activity. What had begun as a single basketball court had expanded over 3 years to include not just the adjacent community center, but a computer lab, tutoring spaces, a small health clinic, and most recently, administrative offices for the growing Chicago branch of the program. As they entered, staff and community members greeted them with the easy familiarity that had developed over years of shared purpose: Today's event had brought together representatives from every community court across the country, along with corporate partners, government officials, and most importantly, the children and families who formed the program's heart. In the main gymnasium, chairs had been arranged for the ceremony. At the front, a veiled structure waited for the day's big reveal. Grace Reeves was already there, chatting with O'Malley, and several regular patrons from the bar who had become program volunteers over the years. "There he is," Grace said warmly, embracing her son. "Ready for your big moment?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Marcus replied. Thompson appeared, now the head of security for the entire Chicago branch of the program. "Everything's set," he reported. "Press is in position, guests are seated, just waiting for your signal." Marcus took a deep breath, centering himself before what would be the most significant step in the program's evolution. Jordan placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "Remember what I told you that first night? Some opportunities come once in a lifetime. This is another one of those moments." With a nod of agreement, Marcus moved to the podium at the front of the room. The crowd quieted as he prepared to speak. The familiar faces of people who had been part of this journey from the beginning, grounding him in the significance of the moment. 3 years ago today, Marcus began, his voice steady and confident. "I was a security guard on my first day of work. My assignment was simple: check credentials, no exceptions." This drew knowing laughter from those familiar with the story. That one moment of standing my ground changed everything. Not just for me, but for communities across this country. He gestured to the representatives from other cities, each wearing jackets emblazoned with their local community court's logo. What began with one court in Chicago has grown to 100 nationwide. What started with a basketball challenge has become a movement that teaches young people not just athletic skills, but life skills, perseverance, teamwork, and yes, knowing when to stand your ground. Marcus paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. Today, we take the next step in that journey. For 3 years, I've had the privilege of serving as national director of this program. I've watched it grow from a Chicago initiative to a national network. And I've come to understand that the true power of what we're building isn't in the courts themselves, but in the communities that form around them. He motioned toward the veiled structure, which is why today I'm announcing the formation of the Community Courts Foundation, an independent nonprofit that will ensure this work continues and expands for generations to come. With a nod to Thompson, the veil was pulled away, revealing a large sign bearing the Foundation's new logo, a stylized basketball court containing not just a basketball but open books, medical symbols, and computer icons representing the program's evolution beyond sports into education, health, and technology. Applause filled the gymnasium as Marcus continued. The Foundation will operate independently, with funding secured for the next decade through our corporate and government partnerships. And while I will serve on its board of directors, the day-to-day leadership will transition to a team of directors drawn from the communities we serve. He gestured to a group seated in the front row, men and women who had risen through the program's ranks over the past 3 years, many from the very neighborhoods now being transformed. This transition isn't about stepping away, Marcus explained, but about ensuring that what we've built belongs to the communities it serves, about making sure that what began with a security check and a basketball challenge becomes something that outlasts all of us. As the applause grew, Marcus invited Jordan to join him at the podium. Together, they unveiled a second display, a wall bearing photographs from every community court nationwide. surrounding the framed letter James Reeves had written 27 years earlier, now preserved for inspiration. "My father wrote that basketball is more than a game," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion as he pointed to the letter. He understood that, at its best, it's a connector, a builder of bridges between worlds that might otherwise never meet. Everything we've done, everything we will do, honors that understanding. The ceremony continued with Jordan speaking about the program's impact and future, followed by representatives from various courts sharing success stories. Throughout, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion, not an ending, but a circle, connecting back to its beginning, while simultaneously expanding outward. Later, as the formal event transitioned to a community celebration with food, music, and of course, basketball, Marcus found a quiet moment with his mother on the bleachers, overlooking the court where everything had started. "I left Dad's keychain at the cemetery today," he told her, showing the new community court's keychain that had replaced it. "Felt like the right time to pass it forward somehow." Grace nodded, understanding. He would have approved. James never held on to things. He believed in keeping what matters in motion. They watched as Jordan played a casual game of HORSE with children from the program, deliberately missing shots to keep the game competitive. Despite his age and status, he remained fully engaged, treating each child with the same respect. He'd show a professional player. "Did you ever imagine this?" Grace asked, gesturing to the thriving community space around them. "That first night, when you came home and told me you'd stopped Michael Jordan at the door, did you have any idea where it would lead?" Marcus shook his head, smiling at the PE's memory. "I was just worried about keeping my job. Everything since has been," he searched for the right word, "unexpected, but somehow also exactly right." "Your father would say there are no coincidences," Grace remarked, "just connections we don't yet understand." As the day's celebrations continued around them, Marcus reflected on those connections. His father changing a tire for Jordan in 1990, the letter written in 1998, the security check in 2023, all converging to create something none of them could have individually imagined. The invisible threads that linked past to present to future, weaving through lives and communities in patterns that revealed themselves only with time and perspective. The bull's keychain now rested at his father's grave, not abandoned, but planted, like a seed from which new growth had already emerged. The community court's foundation would carry forward what had begun with that simple emblem, expanding the circles of connection in ways even Marcus couldn't yet envision. As evening approached, Marcus found himself once again standing with Jordan at the edge of the court, echoing their position 3 years earlier at the end of their first encounter. "Full circle," Jordan observed, seeming to read Marcus's thoughts, "but not the end of the story." "Not even close," Marcus agreed, "just the beginning of the next chapter." They watched as the community continued to celebrate around them. Children playing, basketball on the court named for James Reeves, families sharing meals at tables set up in the community center, volunteers planning programs for the coming months. What had started as a confrontation at a door had transformed into a nationwide movement, yet somehow remained rooted in this one neighborhood, this one court, this one community. And whatever whispered words had passed between them on that first night, the secret of a changed tire on a rainy evening, of kindness freely given and remembered decades later, had multiplied into thousands of new connections, new stories, new possibilities unfolding across communities nationwide. The journey that had begun with no exceptions at the United Center's east entrance had indeed come full circle. But circles, by their nature, have no end, only continuous motion, expanding outward while always connecting back to their origins. As Marcus Reeves looked out at what had grown from that single moment of standing his ground, he understood with profound clarity what his father had known all along. Basketball was never just a game. It was a beginning. And that was the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed following Marcus and Michael Jordan's incredible journey from that fateful security check to a nationwide community basketball program. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to know which part of the world this story reached. If you enjoyed this inspirational tale about how small acts of kindness can change lives, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories like this one. We share new content every week that will inspire and uplift you. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Spreading stories about standing your ground, unexpected connections, and the power of community is how we make the world a better place, one story at a time. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with more stories that remind us how we're all connected. That's what good security does, Jordan pointed out, and good detectives, and good basketball players, for that matter, seeing patterns others miss. They returned to the main hall, where Sophia was relieved to hear the shoes had been recovered. The auction resumed with renewed energy, the mysterious disappearance adding an element of drama that seemed to make the wealthy bidders even more generous. As Marcus stood beside Jordan, watching the final items being auctioned, he noticed something had changed. The looks directed his way were different now. No longer just curious about the security guard who'd stopped Michael Jordan, but respectful of the man who'd helped recover a valuable piece of basketball history. "Feels different, doesn't it?" Jordan remarked quietly, noticing the same shift. "What does?" "When people start seeing you, not just looking at you." Marcus nodded slowly. It did feel different. Throughout his life, he'd often felt invisible, the second-string player, the other kid from the wrong side of town, the security guard checking IDs. But tonight, something had changed. People were seeing him, really seeing him, for perhaps the first time. Different, Marcus agreed, but good different. Jordan smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his face from basketball icon to simply a man enjoying an unexpected friendship. "The night's still young," he said, "and I have a feeling there's more in store for both of us." The bull's keychain in Marcus's pocket seemed to grow warmer, as if his father were somehow witnessing this improbable evening unfold. This chance intersection of past and present, of legends and ordinary men, of endings and new beginnings. The auction was drawing to a close, with the recovered Jordan shoes as the grand finale. The bidding had reached a staggering $300,000 when Jordan suddenly raised his hand, signaling to the auctioneer. "Before we conclude," Jordan said, taking the microphone, "I'd like to add something special to this final lot." The crowd hushed, anticipation rippling through the room. Marcus watched, curious about what Jordan could possibly add to make the already valuable shoes more desirable. "The winning bidder will also receive a private basketball clinic with me," Jordan announced. And he turned to Marcus with a smile. "My new friend Marcus Reeves, the man who nearly stopped my fadeaway tonight." A murmur swept through the crowd. Marcus felt his face flush as hundreds of eyes turned toward him once again. "What are you doing?" he whispered to Jordan. "Adding value," Jordan replied quietly, "for the charity." The auctioneer regained control, his voice rising with excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The championship shoes, plus a private clinic with Michael Jordan and the security guard who challenged him." Marcus wanted to disappear through the floor, but there was nowhere to hide. The bidding resumed with renewed vigor, quickly climbing past $400,000. Finally, a tech billionaire in the front row claimed victory with a bid of $575,000 to thunderous applause. "That's more than $500,000, Marcus said, stunned, as they stepped away from the auction stage. "For a good cause," Jordan reminded him, "Chicago's kids." "But why include me in the package? I'm nobody." Jordan's expression turned serious. "First, you're not nobody. Second, what happened between us tonight will be all over social media by morning. Might as well use it to benefit the charity." Before Marcus could respond, Scottie Pippen approached, grinning broadly. "Mike, they're setting up for the exhibition game on the practice court. You coming?" "Exhibition game?" Marcus asked. "Just a little tradition," Pippen explained. "After the formal part of these events, some of us old-timers play a friendly game for the donors who stick around. Nothing serious." Jordan checked his watch. Perfect timing. The auction ran longer than expected. He turned to Marcus. "You should join us." Marcus's eyes widened. "Me? Play with you guys? No way." "Yes way," Jordan countered. "You've already proven you can hang for at least one possession." That was different. "Marcus," Jordan interrupted, his voice firm but kind. "Sometimes, opportunities come once in a lifetime. This is one of those times." The weight of the moment settled on Marcus's shoulders. His father would have given anything to play even a pickup game with these legends. The worn Bulls keychain seemed to pulse in his pocket, a silent encouragement. "All right," Marcus agreed finally, "but don't expect much." "Just bring the same defense you showed earlier," Jordan said with a wink. They made their way back to the practice court, now surrounded by rows of chairs for spectators. Many of the gala's wealthiest donors had lingered specifically for this part of the evening, the chance to see basketball legends play in an intimate setting. In the makeshift locker room, Jordan introduced Marcus to the others who would be playing. Pippen, Kerr, Kukoc, and several more former Bulls, all now in their 40s and 50s, but still carrying themselves with athletic confidence. "Got some practice gear for you," Pippen said, tossing Marcus a Red Bulls practice jersey and shorts. "Might be a bit big, but better than playing in that security uniform." Marcus changed quickly, feeling both ridiculous and awestruck as he pulled on the iconic red jersey. It was indeed too large, clearly meant for someone with Pippen's height, but he rolled up the sleeves and made it work. "Not bad," Jordan approved as Marcus emerged. "Red was always your color, I bet." They walked onto the court to enthusiastic applause from the gathered donors. Marcus spotted Thompson in the crowd, watching with an expression that mixed disbelief with something like pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," an announcer called over the PA system, "for your entertainment, some friendly competition featuring Bulls legends and a special guest." The players divided into teams, with Marcus finding himself alongside Jordan, Kerr, and two others against Pippen's squad. As they huddled before the tip-off, Jordan gave simple instructions. "Just relax and play your game," he told Marcus. "Nothing fancy. Set screens, make the easy pass, and play defense like you did earlier." "That's all?" Marcus asked, suddenly nervous about disappointing these basketball icons. "That's all," Jordan confirmed. "Basketball is basketball. The fundamentals don't change, whether you're playing in your driveway or the NBA Finals." The game began with the casual intensity of competitive men who still loved to play. The former professionals moved more slowly than in their prime, but with no less skill. Their shots still fell. With practiced precision, their passes still found teammates with uncanny accuracy. Marcus hung back initially, overwhelmed by the situation. He set screens as instructed, moved the ball when it came to him, and tried to stay out of the way. But after a few minutes, something shifted. The game's familiar rhythm began to calm his nerves. During a break in play, Jordan pulled him aside. "You're thinking too much. Stop worrying about who we are and just play." Marcus nodded, taking a deep breath. The next time down the court, when he found himself open near the basket, he called for the ball. Jordan passed it without hesitation, and Marcus finished with a simple layup. The crowd applauded, and Marcus's teammates nodded approval. It wasn't spectacular, but it was solid basketball. From that moment, Marcus began to find his groove. He remembered moves from high school, instincts he thought he'd forgotten. On defense especially, he held his own, staying in front of opponents and contesting shots. During one memorable sequence, he found himself defending Pippen on the perimeter. The Hall of Famer smiled, accepting the challenge, and began a series of dribble moves designed to create space. Marcus stayed with him step for step, finally forcing Pippen into a difficult shot that bounced off the rim. "Where'd you learn to move your feet like that?" Pippen asked as they jogged back down court. "My dad," Marcus replied simply. The game continued, competitive but good-natured. No one was keeping official score, though. Everyone secretly tracked it in their heads. Once a competitor, always a competitor. When Marcus blocked a shot attempt by Kukoc, sending the ball into the stands, even the Croatian legend had to smile and give him a respectful nod. In the final minutes, with the teams separated by just a few baskets, Jordan called Marcus over during a timeout. "Time for you to guard me," he said, a familiar competitive gleam in his eye. Marcus glanced at their teammates. "But we're on the same team." "We're switching it up for the last play," Jordan explained, giving the crowd what they want, a rematch of earlier tonight. The announcement went out over the PA system. For the final possession, Marcus Reeves would once again defend Michael Jordan, one-on-one. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. This time, there was no anxiety, no fear of losing his job. There was only the pure challenge of basketball, a defensive player trying to stop perhaps the greatest offensive force the game had ever known. Jordan began with his methodical dribble, the ball an extension of his hand. His eyes never left. Marcus's measuring, calculating. Despite his age, despite the casual nature of the exhibition, Michael Jordan played only one way: to win. Marcus settled into his defensive stance, muscle memory taking over. His father's voice echoed in his mind. Low center of gravity, active hands. Watch the hips, not the ball. Jordan's first move came quickly, a crossover so smooth it seemed to defy physics. But Marcus stayed with him, sliding his feet, keeping his body between Jordan and the basket. Jordan smiled, impressed, but undeterred. He initiated a drive to the right, then spun back left with blinding speed. Marcus anticipated, staying in position, forcing Jordan to pull up for a jumper instead of getting to the rim. The shot missed, bouncing high off the back iron. The crowd gasped. Even Jordan looked surprised for a split second before recovering the ball. His eyes narrowed with renewed determination. "Not bad," he acknowledged, "but we're just getting started." What followed was a basketball clinic. Jordan unleashing a series of moves honed over decades of competition. Between the legs dribbles, hesitation moves, pump fakes, all designed to create the tiniest opening. Marcus stayed with him, matching each move with defensive counter-moves his father had drilled into him during countless hours in their driveway. It wasn't just physical, it was chess at high speed, anticipating, reacting, adjusting. Finally, Jordan backed Marcus down to the low post, using his strength advantage. With a series of precise footwork, he created space for his signature fadeaway jumper, the same shot that had won their earlier confrontation. Marcus recognized it instantly. This time, he was ready. He timed his jump perfectly, extending his antifiviu arm to its maximum reach. His fingertips brushed the ball as it left Jordan's hand. Not enough to block it, but enough to slightly alter its trajectory. The ball hit the rim, circled once, twice, and fell through with a soft swish. The crowd erupted in applause. Jordan landed gracefully, nodding in satisfaction. But when he turned to Marcus, there was genuine respect in his eyes. "Better defense than the first time," he said, extending his hand. "But still my win." Marcus shook his hand, surprisingly not disappointed. "For now," he replied with a smile. Jordan laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle he often used at public events. "I like your confidence, Marcus Reeves." As they walked off the court together, the applause continuing around them, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the pure joy of competition, of pushing himself against the best and holding his own, not winning, but earning respect. In his pocket, his father's bull's keychain seemed to vibrate with approval, as if James Reeves were somehow present, witnessing his son standing toe-to-toe with the legend he had idolized. What had begun as a simple case of mistaken identity at the East entrance had transformed into something neither Marcus nor Jordan could have anticipated. A connection bridging different worlds, different generations, different life experiences, all through the universal language of basketball. As they walked off the practice court, surrounded by applauding spectators, Marcus felt transported to another world. Just 12 hours ago, he had been nervously straightening his new security uniform in front of the United Center. Now, he was walking alongside Michael Jordan, wearing Bulls practice gear, having just played basketball with NBA legends. "You play better than you let on," Jordan commented as they reached the sidelines. "Second string in high school? I'm not buying it." Marcus shrugged. "It's true. Wasn't tall enough for varsity until junior year, and even then, mostly rode the bench." "Height isn't everything," Steve Kerr chimed in, joining them with a towel around his neck. "Some of us had to rely on other skills." Jordan nodded. "Basketball IQ, anticipation, heart, things you can't measure." Sophia Washington approached, her clipboard finally absent, replaced by a genuine smile. "That was amazing," she said, looking at Marcus with new respect. "The donors are thrilled. We've already received additional pledges worth over $200,000 just since the exhibition game." "See," Jordan said to Marcus, "your defense is worth something after all." Marcus laughed, feeling lighter than he had in months. The burden of his mother's medical bills, his employment worries, the day-to-day struggles, they all seemed temporarily suspended, held at bay by the pure joy of the moment. "There's someone who wants to meet you," Sophia continued, gesturing toward a distinguished older man in an expensive suit. Dr. Samuel Reynolds, Chief of Medicine at Chicago Memorial. Marcus's smile faltered. Chicago Memorial, his mother's hospital. Had something happened? Was Dr. Reynolds here with news about her condition? Jordan sensed his concern. "It's okay," he said quietly. "I asked him to come." Before Marcus could question this, Dr. Reynolds approached, extending his hand. "Mr. Reeves, a pleasure to meet you. I understand your mother is a patient at our hospital." "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, shaking the doctor's hand. "Grace Reeves. Dr. Winters is her specialist." Dr. Reynolds nodded. "Sarah Winters is one of our finest. Your mother is in good hands." He glanced at Jordan, then back to Marcus. "Michael has shared some information about your family's situation." Marcus shot a questioning look at Jordan, who simply nodded encouragingly. "I serve on the board of this charity," Dr. Reynolds continued, "and we've recently expanded our mission to include medical support for families in underserved Chicago neighborhoods." "That's good to hear," Marcus said cautiously, unsure where this was leading. "In fact," Dr. Reynolds said, "we've established a special fund for patients like your mother, those with chronic conditions requiring ongoing treatment, but facing financial hardship." The implications slowly dawned on Marcus. "Are you saying your mother's treatment will be covered by our new program?" Dr. Reynolds confirmed. "Effective immediately and continuing for as long as necessary." Marcus stood frozen, unable to process the words, the weight that had been pressing on him. 40 months, the mounting bills, the extra shifts, the constant worry, suddenly lifted. "I don't understand," he finally managed. "Why?" Dr. Reynolds smiled. "The fund was Michael's idea, actually. Part of tonight's proceeds will support it." Marcus turned to Jordan, who was watching his reaction with quiet satisfaction. "You did this? For my mom? You don't even know us." "I know enough," Jordan replied simply. "I know you stood your ground when it would have been easier not to. I know you're working security to help your family, not yourself. And I know what it's like to have someone believe in you when no one else does." Marcus struggled to find words, emotions crowding his throat. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," Jordan said. "On the court, twice." His smile turned mischievous, "though I still won both times." This broke the tension, allowing Marcus to laugh through the tears threatening to form. "Next time might be different." "That's what I like about you, Reeves. Always thinking ahead." Jordan checked his watch. "Speaking of which, the night's not over. There's someone else I want you to meet." As Dr. Reynolds excused himself to join other donors, Jordan led Marcus toward a quieter corner of the event space. There, a man in a sharp business suit waited patiently, scrolling through his phone. "Marcus, this is Alan Parker, VP of Operations for Jordan Brand." The man looked up, offering a firm handshake. "Mr. Reeves, your defensive footwork is impressive." "Thank you," Marcus replied automatically, still processing everything that had happened. "Alan oversees our community initiatives," Jordan explained, "including the coaching staff for the Neighborhood Courts program I announced tonight." Alan nodded. "We're looking for people who understand both basketball and community. People with integrity. Michael thinks you might be interested." Marcus blinked, looking between the two men. "Are you offering me a job?" "An opportunity," Jordan corrected, "to be part of building something in your neighborhood. The pay's better than security work, and the hours would allow you to finish your education if you want." "I don't have coaching experience," Marcus pointed out. "But you have life experience," Jordan countered. "You know the neighborhood. You understand what basketball can mean to a community, and you've got solid fundamentals." He grinned. "Anyone who can stay in front of Scottie Pippen can teach a kid how to play defense." Marcus's mind raced. A job with Jordan Brand, working in his own neighborhood, better pay. And now, with his mother's medical expenses covered? "This isn't charity," Jordan added, reading his expression. "It's recognition of value. There's a difference." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding. This wasn't about pity. It was about potential. Jordan wasn't giving handouts. He was opening doors. "I'd need to give notice at Premier Security," Marcus said, already thinking practically. Alan smiled. "I think Thompson will understand. But take some time to think about it. The offer stands." As Alan walked away to rejoin the main event, Marcus turned to Jordan. "Why are you doing all this? The medical fund? The job offer? You barely know me." Jordan's expression turned reflective. "You reminded me of something I sometimes forget in all this." He gestured to the opulent surroundings, the wealthy donors, the trappings of celebrity. "Basketball isn't just a game. It's connection. It's community. It's family." He nodded toward Marcus's pocket, where the Bulls' keychain rested. "Your father knew that. Carrying that keychain all those years, taking you to the celebrations, watching the games at O'Malley's, he was connecting you to something bigger than just wins and losses." Marcus's throat tightened with emotion. He would have been thrilled just to meet you, let alone all this. "Maybe he orchestrated the whole thing," Jordan suggested with a slight smile. "Making sure you took that security job, putting you at the east entrance exactly when I showed up without credentials." The idea was fanciful, of course, but strangely comforting. The notion that his father might somehow still be guiding his path, even now. "There was something else I wanted to ask you," Jordan said, his tone shifting slightly. "That Bulls keychain. Would you consider trading it?" Marcus's hand went protectively to his pocket. "Trade it? For what?" From his own pocket, Jordan produced a different keychain, newer, but still with the familiar Bulls logo. This one was "With me during the second three-peat, 1996 through 1998. Not many people know I carried it, but it was my good luck charm." Marcus stared at the offered keychain, understanding the magnitude of what Jordan was proposing. A piece of basketball history, directly from the legend himself, in exchange for his father's worn memento. "Why would you want to trade?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "Mine's just an old souvenir." Jordan's eyes held something Marcus couldn't quite read, something between nostalgia and certainty. "Let's just say it would mean something to me. A reminder of tonight." Marcus carefully removed his father's keychain from his pocket, feeling its familiar weight in his palm one last time. He thought of all it represented: his father's love, for the Bulls, for basketball, for the community that had gathered at O'Malley's to witness history together. But he also thought of his father's words. "Some moments you have to witness, son. Some moments are bigger than jobs or rules or everyday life." This was one of those moments. With a deep breath, Marcus extended his hand, offering the worn keychain to Michael Jordan. "It's a trade." Jordan nodded with respect, handing over his own keychain while accepting Marcus's. As they completed the exchange, something passed between them. an understanding that transcended the physical items. This wasn't just about keychains, it was about legacy, about passing something forward. "Your father would be proud," Jordan said again, echoing his words from earlier, "not just of your defense, but of who you are." As Marcus closed his fingers around his new keychain, Jordan's keychain, he felt an unexpected sense of completion. What had begun as a case of mistaken identity had become something profound, something his father would have called a moment worth witnessing. The night continued around them, the charity gala gradually winding down as donors departed, with emptier wallets and fuller hearts. But for Marcus Reeves, standing in the United Center with Michael Jordan's keychain in his pocket, and a future suddenly bright with possibility, the night felt less like an ending and more like a beginning. As the charity gala entered its final hour, the atmosphere had transformed from formal fundraising to relaxed celebration. Security personnel began discreetly removing auction items, caterers cleared empty champagne flutes, and donors exchanged business cards and promises to golf together. Through it all, Marcus remained by Jordan's side, still processing the evening's extraordinary developments. "Mr. Jordan," a young woman from the event staff approached tentatively, "your car is ready whenever you'd like to leave." Jordan nodded, his thanks. "Give me 15 minutes, he replied, then turned to Marcus. "One last thing before the night ends. Walk with me?" They made their way through the thinning crowd, occasionally pausing as Jordan greeted departing guests. Marcus noticed how Jordan navigated these interactions with practiced ease, present enough to make each person feel valued, yet efficient, enough to keep moving. "How do you do that?" Marcus asked as they continued walking. "Do what?" "Make everyone feel like they're the only person in the room, even when you're clearly trying to get somewhere else." Jordan smiled. "It's about being present. Wherever you are, be fully there, even if it's just for 30 seconds. He nodded toward the exit. "Like tonight, all these people paid good money to support the charity, but also to have a moment with me. They deserve my full attention, even briefly." They reached a quiet hallway leading to the administrative offices of the United Center, an area normally off-limits to the public. Jordan produced a key card and swiped it through a reader, opening a door marked "Private." "Where are we going?" Marcus asked. "You'll see," Jordan replied mysteriously. They descended a staircase and walked through another key card-protected door, emerging into what appeared to be a small museum. Glass cases displaying Bulls memorabilia lined the walls. Championship trophies, game-worn uniforms, historic photographs. "The Bulls' private collection," Jordan explained. "Most of this never goes on public display." Marcus moved slowly along, the cases awestruck. Here was history. Not just basketball history, but Chicago history, his father's history. He paused before a display containing the actual shoes Jordan had worn during the flu game that his father had attended. "Dad would have loved this," Marcus whispered, almost to himself. "That's why we're here," Jordan said. "I wanted to show you something." He led Marcus to a display case in the corner, this one containing not championship rings or MVP trophies, but what appeared to be fan memorabilia, letters, homemade signs, photographs submitted by ordinary Bulls supporters over the years. "The team keeps a collection of fan memories," Jordan explained. "Reminds everyone what the Bulls mean to Chicago, beyond just winning games." He pointed to a faded photograph in the case. The image showed a packed bar, people standing on chairs, arms raised in celebration, eyes fixed on a TV screen showing the final moments of what appeared to be a playoff game. Marcus leaned closer, his breath catching. "That's O'Malley's," he said, recognizing the distinctive shamrock sign visible in the background. "During the finals." 1997, Jordan confirmed. Game 5, the flu game. "But how did this get here?" Marcus asked, studying the photo more carefully. "Look in the corner," Jordan prompted. Marcus scanned the crowd captured in the photograph, and then he saw him, a tall man in Arid Bulls cap, his face transformed with joy, arms raised in triumph. Beside him stood a young boy, perhaps 9 or 10, wearing an oversized Bulls t-shirt. "That's—" Marcus couldn't finish the sentence, emotion closing his throat. "James Reeves," Jordan said quietly. "And his son." Marcus stared at the photograph in disbelief. There they were, his father and himself, frozen in a moment of pure celebration, now preserved in the Bulls' private collection. "I don't understand," Marcus finally managed. "How did you know?" Jordan's expression softened. "The keychain," he said. "When you showed it to me earlier, I recognized it." He pointed to the photograph, where the same distinctive Bulls keychain was visible, hanging from James Reeves's belt loop. "I remembered seeing it in this picture." Marcus looked from the photograph to Jordan, trying to process what this meant. "You recognized a keychain in an old photograph?" Jordan smiled. "I have a good memory for details. It's what made me a student of the game." His smile turned reflective. "But there's more to it than that." He gestured to the plaque beneath the photograph. Marcus leaned closer to read the small text. "Celebration at O'Malley's Bar, 79th Street, following the flu game." Photo submitted by James Reeves, who wrote, "Basketball isn't just a game in Chicago. It's how we come together. It's how we teach our children about perseverance and excellence. Thank you for giving my son and our community something to believe in." Marcus read the words twice, hearing them in his father's voice. Tears blurred his vision, but he didn't wipe them away. "He submitted this?" Marcus asked softly. Jordan nodded. "After the '97 championship. The team collected fan memories, and this one stood out. The photograph, yes, but more importantly, the message behind it." Marcus touched the glass gently, as if reaching through time to connect with his father. "I remember that night," he said. "The whole neighborhood was at O'Malley's. When you hit that three-pointer in the fourth quarter, the place erupted. Dad lifted me onto his shoulders so I could see over the crowd." "A good memory," Jordan observed. "One of the best," Marcus agreed, still staring at the photograph. After a moment, he turned to Jordan. "But I still don't understand. Even if you recognize the keychain, why go to all this trouble for a stranger?" Jordan was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "Your father's message stayed with me," he finally said. "About basketball being more than a game, about community, about giving kids something to believe in." He gestured to the keychain now in Marcus's pocket. "When I saw that same keychain tonight, it felt like, I don't know, like things had come full circle somehow." Marcus nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "That's why you wanted to trade keychains, and why you announced the first community court would be near O'Malley's. Some connections are meant to be honored," Jordan said simply. They stood in silence for a moment, both contemplating the strange path that had led them here, from a security check gone wrong to this private moment among basketball history. "There's one more thing I want to show you," Jordan said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He produced a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. This came with the photograph. He handed it to Marcus, who unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten letter, the ink slightly faded but still legible. Marcus recognized his father's distinctive handwriting immediately. Dear Mr. Jordan, my name is James Reeves. I'm writing to thank you not just for the championships, but for what you've given our neighborhood. I've enclosed a photograph from O'Malley's on 79th during the flu game. That's me and my son Marcus celebrating. I want you to know that when you played through illness that night, it taught my son more than I ever could about pushing through adversity. When you're from our neighborhood, life isn't always easy. But watching you refuse to quit gives kids like Marcus something powerful, a model of excellence and determination. Basketball might just be a game to some, but in Chicago, it's a bridge. It connects different neighborhoods, different generations. It gives us common ground. One day, I hope Marcus might meet you and thank you himself. Until then, please accept my gratitude for being more than just a basketball player to Chicago. Respectfully, James Reeves. Marcus read the letter twice, then a third time, his father's voice echoing in his mind with each word. The paper trembled slightly in his hands. He wrote this? Marcus asked, though the evidence was right before him. 28 years ago, Jordan confirmed. It stayed in the team archives all this time. When I saw your keychain tonight, I had them find it. Marcus carefully refolded the letter, overwhelmed by the connection. His father's words, traveling across decades to reach him on this improbable night. I'd like you to keep it, Jordan said, nodding toward the letter. It belongs with you. Now. Thank you, Marcus managed, tucking the precious document into his pocket alongside Jordan's keychain. Your father wanted you to meet me someday, Jordan observed, though I doubt he imagined it would happen with you stopping me at the door. This unexpected humor broke the emotional tension, allowing Marcus to laugh through his tears. Definitely not how he pictured it. Life rarely unfolds as we expect, Jordan said, his tone philosophical. But sometimes it unfolds exactly as it should. As they left the private collection and made their way back to the main arena, Marcus felt a sense of completion he hadn't expected to find tonight, or perhaps ever. His first day as a security guard had somehow connected him to his father in ways he couldn't have imagined, bringing a message across time and circumstance. The charity event had all but concluded. The last guests were collecting their coats. Event staff were dismantling displays, and Thompson was directing the security team in their final duties. Mr. Reeves, Thompson called when he spotted them. I was wondering where you'd disappeared to. My fault, Jordan interjected smoothly. I needed his assistance with something. Thompson nodded, clearly still processing the unusual events of the evening. Well, your shift technically ended 20 minutes ago. First day on the job and you're already working overtime. About that, Marcus began, uncertain how to explain everything that had transpired. Jordan stepped in. Marcus has been offered a position with our community courts program. I hope Premier Security won't mind losing him so soon after hiring. Him? Thompson's eyebrows rose. Is that so? He looked at Marcus with new respect. Can't say I'm surprised after what I saw tonight. He extended his hand. No hard feelings. You did good work today, Reeves. Exactly what I asked for. No exceptions. As Marcus shook his former supervisor's hand, he felt the strange journey of the day coming full circle, from nervous new hire to whatever he was becoming now. Your car is waiting, Mr. Jordan, a staff member reminded them. Jordan nodded acknowledgement, then turned to Marcus. "Need a ride?" The offer was casual, but Marcus understood its significance. One final gesture connecting their worlds. "That would be great," he replied, feeling both the weight and the lightness of everything that had happened. As they walked toward the exit together, the basketball legend and the security guard who'd stopped him, Marcus touched the keychain in his pocket, alongside his father's letter. The two objects, separated by decades but joined by circumstance, felt like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. Whatever Jordan had whispered to him on the court earlier remained between them, like a promise of things yet to unfold. But Marcus now understood that some connections transcend time, bridging past and future through the most unexpected encounters. The United Center's lights dimmed behind them as they stepped into the Chicago night, the city skyline glittering against the darkness, a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful journeys begin with simply standing your ground. Jordan's car turned out to be a sleek black SUV with tinted windows, driven by a discreet chauffeur who nodded respectfully as they approached. The interior was spacious and luxurious, with butter-soft leather seats and subtle lighting. "Where to?" Jordan asked as they settled in. Marcus hesitated, suddenly aware of the contrast between their worlds. The South Side, 79th and Essex. "Near O'Malley's," Jordan observed, then instructed the driver with a simple nod. As the vehicle pulled away from the United Center, a comfortable silence fell between them. Chicago slid past the windows, downtown's glittering towers gradually giving way to more modest neighborhoods as they headed south. Marcus watched the familiar transformation, seeing his city through new eyes. "You look lost in thought," Jordan commented after a while. "Just trying to process everything," Marcus admitted. "This morning I was worried about making rent and paying Mom's medical bills. Now..." He shook his head in disbelief. "Life changes fast sometimes," Jordan said. "For better or worse." "Definitely for better tonight," Marcus replied, touching the pocket where his father's letter and Jordan's keychain rested. They crossed into the South Side, the landscape shifting to the working-class neighborhoods where Marcus had grown up. The streets here told different stories of struggle and perseverance, of community amid hardship. Jordan watched through the window with quiet interest. "Tell me about your neighborhood," he said. Marcus considered where to begin. "It's got its challenges," he said honestly. "But there's strength here. People look out for each other. When Mom got sick, neighbors brought meals for weeks. My high school basketball coach gave me rides to the hospital when I couldn't afford bus fare." Jordan nodded. "That's what makes a community. Not buildings or streets, but connections." They turned onto 79th Street, passing familiar landmarks from Marcus's childhood. And there it was, O'Malley's Bar, its green awning and shamrock sign illuminated by a single street lamp. The bar was still open, light spilling from its windows onto the sidewalk. "Stop here," Jordan said suddenly to the driver. Marcus looked at him in surprise as the SUV pulled to the curb. "Here? At O'Malley's?" "Why not?" Jordan replied with a hint of mischief. "The night's still young." "But you want to go in? To O'Malley's?" "Unless you have objections." Jordan's expression was unreadable. Marcus tried to imagine the scene. Michael, Jordan walking into the neighborhood bar where his father had watched countless Bulls games. The place would explode. "They'll never believe it," he said, half to himself. "Only one way to find out," Jordan replied, already opening his door. Marcus followed, still wearing the Bulls' practice gear from the exhibition game. As they approached, the bar's entrance He could hear the familiar sounds of a sports broadcast and casual conversation from inside. "Ready?" Jordan asked. Before Marcus could answer, Jordan pushed open the door and stepped inside. Marcus followed, holding his breath. Reaction wasn't immediate. O'Malley's was modestly filled for a weeknight, perhaps 20 patrons scattered among the tables and bar stools. A basketball game played on the TV mounted above the bar, though not the Bulls. A few heads turned at the new arrivals, then turned back to their conversations. Marcus watched in amazement as Jordan surveyed the room. Here was one of the most recognizable athletes in history, standing in a neighborhood bar in Chicago's South Side, and no one had noticed yet. Then, from behind the bar, a stocky man with gray-streaked red hair looked up from the glass. He was polishing. His eyes widened. The glass slipped from his fingers, clattering on the bar top without breaking. "Holy Mother of God," he said in a thick Irish accent. "It's him!" Like a wave, recognition spread through the bar. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The TV announcer's voice suddenly seemed too loud in the silence. Every head turned toward the door. "Michael Jordan," someone whispered, as if saying it too loudly might make him disappear. "Evening, folks," Jordan said casually. "Heard this was a good place to watch basketball." For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then the bar erupted. Chairs scraping back, voices rising. In excitement, people rushing forward with phones already out for pictures. The red-haired bartender recovered first, coming around the bar with his hand extended. "Patrick O'Malley," he introduced himself. It's my place. Been here 30 years and never thought I'd see the day." Jordan shook his hand. "Good to finally visit. Heard a lot about O'Malley's over the years." "You have?" O'Malley seemed stunned by the idea. "This is where Chicago watched us win," Jordan said simply. Something in his tone, a genuine appreciation, calmed the initial frenzy. The patrons still stared in disbelief, but the rush forward slowed to a respectful approach. "And who's this?" O'Malley asked, noticing Marcus for the first time. Before Marcus could introduce himself, Jordan clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Marcus Reeves, Chicago's finest defensive player." A murmur rippled through the crowd. An older man at the bar narrowed his eyes. "Reeves? Any relation to James Reeves?" Marcus turned, surprised. "He was my father." The man's weathered face broke into a smile. "Jimmy Reeves? We watched 100 Bulls games together right here. Best damn Bulls fan in Chicago." He studied Marcus more carefully. "I see it now. You've got his height, his eyes." More patrons chimed in, memories suddenly flowing. "Jim Reeves! Used to stand on that chair by the door during close games. Had that laugh you could hear 3 blocks away. Always wore that Red Bulls cap, remember? Brought his kid sometimes. That was you?" Marcus felt overwhelmed by this unexpected connection to his father, these shared memories, preserved in a place that had meant so much to both of them. He glanced at Jordan, who watched with quiet satisfaction, as if this were exactly what he'd hoped would happen. O'Malley cleared a path to the bar. "Whatever you're drinking, it's on the house, both of you." "Just water for me," Jordan said. "Still technically working tonight." "Same," Marcus added, conscious of being in his old neighborhood while wearing Bulls practice gear, standing next to Michael Jordan. They settled at the bar, surrounded by patrons eager to share their Bulls memories. The initial shock of Jordan's presence gradually gave way to something warmer, an appreciation for what his visit meant to this neighborhood establishment. "We had your flu game on right there," O'Malley said, pointing to where a newer, larger TV now hung. "Place was so packed we had to lock the doors. Fire marshal would have shut us down if he'd seen it." "Best night this bar ever had," added another longtime patron. "Until now, maybe." Jordan listened to their stories with genuine interest, occasionally asking questions that showed he was truly engaged. He wasn't just tolerating this unplanned stop. He was embracing it. "What brought you here tonight, of all nights?" O'Malley finally asked the question on everyone's mind. Jordan nodded toward Marcus. "Ask him. It's his story to tell." All eyes turned to Marcus, who suddenly felt the weight of the evening's events. How could he possibly explain what had happened? Where would he even begin? "I was working security at the charity gala tonight," he started, deciding simplicity was best. "My first day on the job. Mr. Jordan arrived without his credentials and I wouldn't let him in." Disbelieving laughter rippled through the listeners. "You stopped Michael Jordan?" someone asked incredulously. "He did more than that," Jordan interjected. "He accepted my challenge to play defense against me. Nearly stopped my fadeaway." This revelation caused a fresh stir among the O'Malley's patrons. Marcus found himself recounting the events of the evening: the initial confrontation, the basketball challenge, the exhibition game with Bulls legends. As he spoke, he saw his father in the faces around him, the same passion for basketball, the same appreciation for what the Bulls had meant to Chicago. "Your dad would have loved this," said the older man who had recognized the Reeves name. Him and Michael Jordan in O'Malley's. That was his dream scenario right there. "I think he might have had something to do with it," Marcus replied, touching his pocket where the letter rested. Jordan checked his watch. "We should probably get going," he said quietly to Marcus. "It's getting late." As they prepared to leave, O'Malley approached with something in his hands, a framed photograph that had hung behind the bar. It showed the interior of O'Malley's. During what was clearly a Bulls championship celebration, the frame crowded with jubilant faces. "Mr. Jordan, would you mind signing this? It's from '97, the night of the flu game." Jordan took the frame, studying the photograph carefully. Then he looked up at Marcus. "Take a look. Third row back, by the Shamrock sign." Marcus peered at the picture and felt a jolt of recognition. There, just as in the photograph from the Bulls' private collection, stood his father with a young Marcus on his shoulders. The same moment, captured from a different angle. "That's us," Marcus said softly. O'Malley looked between them, confused. "You knew James Reeves?" "We met tonight," Jordan replied enigmatically. He took the marker O'Malley offered and signed the photograph, adding an inscription: "To O'Malley's, where Chicago's heart beats with the Bulls. Thanks for the memories, MJ." As they finally made their way out amid handshakes and thank yous, the patrons of O'Malley's seemed transformed, not just by meeting a basketball legend, but by being recognized for their role in the Bulls' story. They weren't just fans. They were part of a community that had helped define an era. Outside, as they walked back to the waiting SUV, Marcus found his voice. "You planned that, didn't you? Coming to O'Malley's?" Jordan smiled. "Let's just say I wanted to complete the circle. Your father watched me play in that bar for years. Seemed right to finally visit the place that meant so much to him." As the SUV pulled away from O'Malley's, Marcus looked back at the modest bar with its green awning and Shamrock sign, now forever transformed by Jordan's brief visit. In his mind, he could almost see his father standing outside, Red Bull's cap on his head, nodding in satisfaction at how the evening had unfolded. "Thank you," Marcus said simply. Jordan nodded, understanding that the gratitude extended far beyond the visit to O'Malley's. It encompassed everything that had happened since their confrontation at the United Center's East entrance. "Some connections are meant to be honored," Jordan repeated his words from earlier. "Your father reached out 28 years ago. Tonight, the message finally arrived." As the SUV continued through the Chicago night, Marcus realized that what had begun as a simple security check had become something profound, a bridge between past and present, between a father's hopes and a son's future, between a neighborhood bar and a basketball legend. And whatever Jordan had whispered to him earlier that evening, the secret that had passed between them on the practice court, still waited to be fully revealed like a promise of things yet to come. The SUV continued through the Chicago streets, leaving O'Malley's behind as it headed deeper into Marcus's neighborhood. The energy between Jordan and Marcus had shifted again, from the formality of their first encounter, through the competitive spirit of their basketball challenges, to something that felt almost like friendship. "Where exactly am I taking you?" Jordan asked. "My apartment's on Essex," Marcus replied. "But actually, if it's not too much trouble, could we stop by the hospital first? Chicago Memorial? I'd like to see my mom, tell her what happened." Jordan nodded to the driver, who adjusted their route accordingly. "Of course, she's probably been wondering where you disappeared to all evening." Marcus checked his phone and winced at the dozen missed calls and messages. She definitely has. Last text says, "Either you've been kidnapped or you're having the most interesting first day of work in history." Jordan laughed. She's not wrong about the second part. When they arrived at Chicago Memorial Hospital, Jordan surprised Marcus again. "Mind if I come in with you? I'd like to meet the woman who raised someone with enough backbone to stop me at the door." Marcus hadn't expected this, but the idea of introducing his mother to Michael Jordan, of bringing this extraordinary evening full circle, felt right. "She'd love that, if you're sure you don't mind." "Not at all," Jordan said, following Marcus into the hospital. The night nurse at the reception desk did a double-take as they approached, first at Marcus in his Bulls practice gear, then at his companion. Her eyes widened in recognition, but professional composure quickly took over. "Visiting hours ended at 8, she said, then added with a slight softening, "But for family, we can make exceptions. Room number?" "C12, Marcus replied. "Grace Reeves. I'm her son." The nurse nodded, then couldn't help adding, "And your friend?" Jordan smiled disarmingly. "Just tagging along, if that's all right." The nurse seemed to struggle internally before giving in to curiosity. "Are you really—" "Yes, ma'am," Jordan confirmed politely. "Just here to meet Mrs. Reeves." This simple explanation, delivered without celebrity pretense, seemed to satisfy the nurse. She buzzed them through, watching in amazement as Michael Jordan followed Marcus Reeves toward the elevators. As they rode up to the third floor, Marcus felt a sudden nervousness. "Mom's been sick for a while," he explained. "Some days are better than others. She might be sleeping." "We won't stay long," Jordan assured him. "Just long enough to say hello." Room 312 was semi-private, though currently Marcus's mother had no roommate. As they approached, Marcus could see soft light spilling from the partially open door. He knocked gently. "Mom? It's Marcus." "About time," came the immediate response, a woman's voice with surprising strength despite its weariness. "I was about to call the police." Marcus smiled at Jordan, then pushed the door open. Grace Reeves sat propped up in her hospital bed, a novel open on her lap and reading glasses perched on her nose. She was thin, with the fragile appearance of someone battling chronic illness, but her eyes were bright and alert, the same deep brown as her son's. "Sorry I'm late," Marcus began. "Something unexpected happened at work, and—" He stopped as his mother's gaze shifted past him to the doorway where Jordan stood. Her book slipped from her fingers. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Mom, this is—" "I know who he is," Grace interrupted, her voice barely audible. "The real question is, why is Michael Jordan standing in my hospital room at 11 o'clock at night?" Jordan stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mrs. Reeves, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard good things about your son." Grace shook his hand automatically, looking between Jordan and Marcus with increasing bewilderment. "Marcus, what on earth is going on? And why are you wearing Bulls practice gear?" Over the next 20 minutes, they took turns explaining the evening's events, the initial confrontation at the United Center, the basketball challenge, the exhibition game, the visit to O'Malley's. Grace listened with growing amazement, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. "So let me get this straight," she said when they finished. "My son stopped Michael Jordan from entering his own charity event, then played basketball with him and Bulls legends, and now he's being offered a job with Jordan Brand." "That about covers it," Jordan confirmed with a smile. Grace turned to Marcus. "And all this happened on your first day as a security guard?" "First and last, probably," Marcus admitted. "Definitely," Jordan corrected. "We need him starting on the community courts program as soon as possible." Grace's expression softened. "James would have loved this," she said quietly. "He always said basketball had a way of bringing people together. I never quite understood what he meant until now." "Your husband was right," Jordan said. "It's more than just a game." "He wasn't my husband," Grace clarified. "We never married, but he was a good man and a wonderful father." She looked at Marcus with pride. "He taught our son well." "Yes, he did," Jordan agreed. There was a comfortable silence as Grace processed everything they'd told her. Finally, she fixed Jordan with a direct look. "And the medical bills? Marcus mentioned something about a special fund?" "The Jordan Foundation is expanding its mission," Jordan explained, "starting with families in neighborhoods where we're building community courts. Your treatment will be fully covered going forward." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Just like that?" "Just like that," Jordan confirmed. "Why?" The question was simple, but profound. Jordan glanced at Marcus, then back to Grace. "Let's just say I'm honoring a connection that began long ago. Your family's story and mine have been intertwined longer than any of us realized." Marcus pulled the letter from his pocket. "Dad wrote to him, Mom, after the flu game. Sent a photograph of us at O'Malley's. It's been in the Bulls archives all these years." He handed the letter to his mother, who read it with trembling hands. When she finished, she looked up at Jordan with new understanding. "He never told me about this letter," she said softly. "But it sounds exactly like James, always believing in the power of connection, always seeing basketball as something that could bridge divides. Smart man," Jordan said simply. A nurse appeared in the doorway, apologetically pointing to her watch. Understanding the signal, Jordan rose to leave. "It was an honor to meet you, Mrs. Reeves," he said. "Your son made quite an impression tonight. Now I see where he gets his strength." Grace smiled through her tears. "Thank you for bringing him to see me. and for everything else. As they prepared to leave, Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to Grace. "My personal assistant's number. If you need anything at all, call this number, day or night." Marcus walked Jordan back to the elevator, overwhelmed by the generosity being shown to his family. "I don't know how to thank you," he said for what felt like the 100th time that night. "Remember what I said on the court?" Jordan replied cryptically. "Which part?" Jordan smiled enigmatically. "The part I whispered to you, after the fadeaway. Remember that. And we're even." Before Marcus could press for clarification, the elevator arrived. Jordan stepped inside with a final nod. "See you Monday, Marcus Reeves, 9 a.m. at the Jordan Brand offices. Don't be late." "I won't," Marcus promised as the doors closed. When he returned to his mother's room, Grace was still holding his father's letter, reading it over and over. "Did that really just happen?" she asked as he sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm still not sure myself," Marcus admitted. Grace studied her son's face. "What did he whisper to you? On the court? After you played?" Marcus blinked in surprise. "How did you know about that?" "A mother knows when her son is keeping a secret," Grace replied with a small smile. "So what was it?" Marcus hesitated, then decided there was no reason to keep it from her. He said, "I met your father once. Chicago gas station, 1990. Car trouble after a tough loss. He helped me change a tire, never asked for an autograph, just wished me better luck next game. Never forgot that kindness." Grace's breath caught. "James helped Michael Jordan change a tire?" "Apparently," Marcus said. "Dad never mentioned it." Grace shook her head in wonder. "Never. That wasn't like him. He told everyone about every Bulls encounter he ever had." She thought for a moment. "Although, there was one time he came home late from work, unusually quiet. When I asked what happened, he just said he'd helped someone who needed it, and that some things weren't meant for sharing." "That must have been it," Marcus said softly. "So, all these years later," Grace began. "All these years later, Jordan remembered that kindness," Marcus finished. "And when he saw Dad's keychain, something clicked." They sat in contemplative silence, both processing the extraordinary chain of events that had connected their family to a basketball legend across decades. A simple act of kindness repaid in ways James Reeves could never have imagined. "What happens now?" Grace finally asked. "I start a new job on Monday," Marcus replied, the reality still sinking in. "Working on Jordan's community courts program. Better pay, better hours," he smiled. "And your medical bills are covered." Grace squeezed his hand. "Not just that. What happens with you?" "This changes things, Marcus. You've been stuck in neutral since your father died, taking whatever jobs came along, putting your own dreams on hold to take care of me." "Mom." "No, let me finish," she insisted gently. "James always believed basketball could open doors. Not just playing the game professionally, but the connections it creates, the communities it builds. Tonight proved he was right." Her eyes were earnest as she continued. "So the real question is, what do you want now? What doors will you walk through?" The question hung in the air between them, profound in its simplicity. What did Marcus want? Now that the immediate pressures of survival were eased, what dreams had he set aside that might now be possible? As he considered his mother's question, Marcus felt the weight of Jordan's keychain in his pocket. A talisman of possibility, a reminder that life could change in an instant, that connections could span decades and transform futures. "I want to build something," he said finally. "Something that lasts, something Dad would be proud of." Grace smiled, tears gathering in her eyes again. "He already is proud, Marcus. Wherever he is, he's proud." As Marcus left the hospital that night, the Chicago skyline glittered in the UI distance, a city of possibilities, of connections waiting to be discovered, of doors waiting to be opened. The extraordinary events of the day had changed everything, transforming a simple security check into the beginning of a new chapter. And somewhere, Marcus thought, as he clutched the keychain in his pocket, his father was smiling down on the unexpected way his worlds had finally connected. The security guard's son he'd raised, and the basketball legend he'd once quietly helped on a rainy Chicago night, now linked by threads of kindness stretching across time. "Visiting hours ended at 8, she said, then added with a slight softening, "But for family, we can make exceptions." "Room number?" 312, Marcus replied. "Grace Reeves. I'm her son." The nurse nodded, then couldn't help adding, "And your friend?" Jordan smiled disarmingly. "Just tagging along, if that's all right." The nurse seemed to struggle internally before giving in to curiosity. "Are you really?" "Yes, ma'am," Jordan confirmed politely. "Just here to meet Mrs. Reeves." This simple explanation, delivered without celebrity pretense, seemed to satisfy the nurse. She buzzed them through, watching in amazement as Michael Jordan followed Marcus Reeves, briefly, toward the elevators. As they rode up to the third floor, Marcus felt a sudden nervousness. "Mom's been sick for a while," he explained. "Some days are better than others. She might be sleeping." "We won't stay long," Jordan assured him. "Just long enough to say hello." Room 312 was semi-private, though currently Marcus's mother had no roommate. As they approached, Marcus could see soft light spilling from the partially open door. He knocked gently. "Mom? It's Marcus." "About time," came the immediate response, a woman's voice with surprising strength, despite its weariness. "I was about to call the police." Marcus smiled at Jordan, then pushed the door open. Grace Reeves sat propped up in her hospital bed, a novel open on her lap and reading glasses perched on her nose. She was thin, with the fragile appearance of someone battling chronic illness, but her eyes were bright and alert, the same deep brown as her son's. "Sorry I'm late," Marcus began. "Something unexpected happened at work, and—" He stopped, as his mother's gaze shifted past him to the doorway where Jordan stood. Her book slipped from her fingers. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Mom, this is—" "I know who he is," Grace interrupted, her voice barely audible. "The real question is, why is Michael Jordan standing in my hospital room at 11 o'clock at night?" Jordan stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mrs. Reeves, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard good things about your son." Grace shook his hand automatically, looking between Jordan and Marcus with increasing bewilderment. "Marcus, what on earth is going on? And why are you wearing Bulls practice gear?" Over the next 20 minutes, they took turns explaining the IB evening's events, the initial confrontation at the United Center, the basketball challenge, the exhibition game, the visit to O'Malley's. Grace listened with growing amazement, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. "So let me get this straight," she said when they finished. "My son stopped Michael Jordan from entering his own charity event, then played basketball with him. And Bulls legends? And now he's being offered a job with Jordan Brand? That about covers it, Jordan confirmed with a smile. Grace turned to Marcus. And all this happened on your first day as a security guard? First and last, probably, Marcus admitted. Definitely, Jordan corrected. We need him starting on the community courts program as soon as possible. Grace's expression softened. James would have loved this, she said quietly. He always said, basketball had a way of bringing people together. I never quite understood what he meant until now. Your husband was right, Jordan said. It's more than just a game. He wasn't my husband, Grace clarified. We never married, but he was a good man and a wonderful father. She looked at Marcus with pride. He taught our son well. Yes, he did, Jordan agreed. There was a comfortable silence as Grace processed everything they'd told her. Finally, she fixed Jordan with a direct look. And the medical bills? Marcus mentioned something about a special fund? The Jordan Foundation is expanding its mission, Jordan explained, starting with families in neighborhoods, where we're building community courts. Your treatment will be fully covered going forward. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Just like that? Just like that, Jordan confirmed. Why? The question was simple, but profound. Jordan glanced at Marcus, then back to Grace. Let's just say I'm honoring a connection that began long ago. Your family's story and mine have been intertwined longer than any of us realized. Marcus pulled the letter from his pocket. Dad wrote to him, Mom, after the flu game, sent a photograph of us at O'Malley's. It's been in the Bulls' archives all these years. He handed the letter to his mother, who read it with trembling hands. When she finished, she looked up at Jordan with new understanding. He never told me about this letter, she said softly, but it sounds exactly like James, always believing in the power of connection, always seeing basketball as something that could bridge divides. Smart man, Jordan said simply. A nurse appeared in the doorway, apologetically pointing to her watch. Understanding the signal, Jordan rose to leave. It was an honor to meet you, Mrs. Reeves, he said. Your son made quite an impression. Tonight. Now I see where he gets his strength. Grace smiled through her tears. Thank you for bringing him to see me. And for everything else. As they prepared to leave, Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to Grace. My personal assistance number. If you need anything at all, call this number, day or night. Marcus walked Jordan back to the elevator, overwhelmed by the generosity being shown to his family. I don't know how to thank you, he said, for what felt like the 100th time that night. Remember what I said on the court? Jordan replied cryptically. Which part? Jordan smiled enigmatically. The part I whispered to you, after the fadeaway. Remember that, and we're even. Before Marcus could press for clarification, the elevator arrived. Jordan stepped inside with a final nod. See you Monday, Marcus Reeves, 9 a.m. at the Jordan Brand offices. Don't be late. I won't, Marcus promised as the doors closed. When he returned to his mother's room, Grace was still holding his father's letter, reading it over and over. Did that really just happen? She asked as he sat on the edge of her bed. I'm still not sure myself, Marcus admitted. Grace studied her son's face. What did he whisper to you? On the court, after you played? Marcus blinked in surprise. How did you know about that? A mother knows when her son is keeping a secret, Grace replied with a small smile. So, what was it? Marcus hesitated, then decided there was no reason to keep it from her. He said, "I met your father once. Chicago gas station, 1990. Car trouble after a tough loss. He helped me change a tire, never asked for an autograph, just wished me better luck next game. Never forgot that kindness." Grace's breath caught. James helped Michael Jordan change a tire? Apparently, Marcus said. Dad never mentioned it? Grace shook her head in wonder. Never. That wasn't like him. He told everyone about every Bulls encounter he ever had. She thought for a moment. Although, there was one time he came home late from work, unusually quiet. When I asked what happened, he just said he'd helped someone who needed it, and that some things weren't meant for sharing. That must have been it, Marcus said softly. So, all these years later, Grace began. All these years later, Jordan remembered that kindness, Marcus finished. And when he saw Dad's keychain, something clicked. They sat in contemplative silence, both processing the extraordinary chain of events that had connected their family to a basketball legend across decades. A simple act of kindness, repaid in ways James Reeves could never have imagined. What happens now? Grace finally asked. I start a new job on Monday, Marcus replied, the reality still sinking in. Working on Jordan's community courts program. Better pay, better hours. He smiled. And your medical bills are covered. Grace squeezed his hand. Not just that. What happens with you? This changes things, Marcus. You've been stuck in neutral since your father died, taking whatever jobs came along, putting your own dreams on hold to take care of me. Mom! No, let me finish, she insisted gently. James always believed basketball could open doors, not just playing the game professionally, but the connections it creates, the communities it builds. Tonight proved he was right. Her eyes were earnest as she continued. So the real question is, what do you want now? What doors will you walk through? The question hung in the air between them, profound in its simplicity. What did Marcus want? Now that the immediate pressures of survival were eased, what dreams had he set aside that might now be possible? As he considered his mother's question, Marcus felt the weight of Jordan's keychain in his pocket. A talisman of possibility, a reminder that life could change in an instant, that connections could span decades and transform futures. I want to build something, he said finally. Something that lasts, something Dad would be proud of. Grace smiled, tears gathering in her eyes again. He already is proud, Marcus. Wherever he is, he's proud. As Marcus left the hospital that night, the Chicago skyline glittered in the EVE distance, a city of possibilities, of connections waiting to be discovered, of doors waiting to be opened. The extraordinary events of the day had changed everything, transforming a simple security check into the beginning of a new chapter. And somewhere, Marcus thought, as he clutched the keychain in his pocket, his father was smiling down on the unexpected way his worlds had finally connected. The security guard's son he'd raised, and the basketball legend he'd once quietly helped on a rainy Chicago night, now linked by threads of kindness stretching across time. 6 months had passed since that fateful night at the United Center. The crisp autumn evening had given way to spring, bringing new growth to Chicago, both literal and metaphorical. Marcus stood at the edge of a freshly constructed basketball court near O'Malley's Bar on 79th Street. The concrete gleamed in the morning sun, unblemished by scuff marks or wear. Brand new backboards with pristine nets hung at each end, and the Bulls logo was painted proudly at center court. Around the perimeter, bleachers provided seating for the neighborhood. A small building stood adjacent to the court, home to the community center that would offer tutoring, mentoring, and a safe space for local youth. The whole complex was enclosed by a decorative fence, offering security without, creating the feeling of a cage. "What do you think?" asked Alan Parker, the Jordan Brand VP, who had become Marcus's mentor over the past months. "It's perfect," Marcus replied, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. "Even better than I imagined." This was the first of 50 planned community courts, but it held special significance. Not only was it in Marcus's old neighborhood, near O'Malley's, where his father had watched countless Bulls games, but it would be dedicated later that day in a ceremony that many in the community had been anticipating for months. "The kids are going to love it," Alan said, checking his watch. "Speaking of which, we should get ready. They'll start arriving soon." Marcus nodded, taking one last moment to appreciate the empty court before the day's events. Chan. In the 6 months since Jordan had offered him a position with the community courts program, Marcus's life had transformed completely. The initial job offer had evolved into a full-time role as Community Engagement Director for the South Side Initiative. He'd found himself using skills he didn't know he possessed: organizing, planning, connecting with neighborhood leaders and youth organizations. His mother's health had improved dramatically once the financial burden of her treatments was lifted. She'd been able to move from the hospital to a comprehensive rehabilitation center, and now was back in a new apartment Marcus had helped her find, one with an elevator and accessibility features that made her daily life easier. Marcus himself had moved to a modest but comfortable place closer to the Jordan Brand offices. The worn security uniform had been replaced by business casual attire that still felt strange some mornings. The temporary security job had faded into an almost dreamlike memory, replaced by purpose and direction. As Marcus walked back toward the community center building, his phone buzzed with a text message. "On our way. ETA 15 minutes. MJ." Some things, however, remained surreal, like having Michael Jordan's personal phone number or receiving casual texts from the basketball legend who had become not just an employer but a mentor and, surprisingly, a friend. Inside the EA Community Center, volunteers were arranging chairs and setting up refreshments for the dedication ceremony. Large photographs lined the walls, action shots from Bulls history, alongside images of neighborhood kids playing basketball on makeshift courts. Marcus had personally selected each photo, creating a visual narrative connecting Chicago's basketball legacy to its future. One photograph held pride of place near the entrance, the image from O'Malley's during the flu game, showing James Reeves with young Marcus on his shoulders. Beside it hung a framed copy of his father's letter to Jordan, preserved behind glass for the community to read. Marcus paused before it now, as he often did, drawing strength from his father's words. Nervous? The question came from Sophia Washington, the charity director who had first introduced Marcus to Dr. Reynolds on that transformative night 6 months ago. She had subsequently joined the Community Courts Initiative as its fundraising coordinator. "A little," Marcus admitted. "It's a big day." "You've earned it," Sophia assured him. "This program wouldn't be what it is without you." Before Marcus could downplay the compliment, the doors opened and the first wave of neighborhood children arrived, elementary and middle school students from local schools, eager to be part of the historic opening. "Mr. Reeves! Mr. Reeves!" Several called out upon seeing him. In the months of planning, Marcus had visited every school in the area, building relationships and gathering input on what the community courts program should offer. "Ready to play some basketball?" he asked, high-fiving the excited children as they entered. "Is it true Michael Jordan is coming?" one boy asked, his eyes wide with hope. "That's the rumor," Marcus replied with a wink. The community center quickly filled with families, local, business owners, and city officials. Thompson, Marcus's former supervisor from Premier Security, arrived with several colleagues. He'd become an unlikely supporter of the program, arranging discounted security services for community events. O'Malley himself came from the bar down the street, bringing several of his regular patrons, the same men who had shared stories about James Reeves on the night Jordan had made his Yeehaw surprise visit. They gravitated to the photograph on the wall, pointing and reminiscing. A hush fell over the crowd as the main doors opened again. Michael Jordan entered, flanked by several former Bulls players, Pippen, Kerr, Kukoc, and others. The children gasped and whispered, while the adults straightened instinctively in the presence of the legend. Jordan spotted Marcus immediately and made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and greeting people but never losing sight of his destination. "Marcus," he said warmly when he reached him, "today's the day." "Thanks for coming," Marcus replied, still somewhat awed by Jordan's presence despite their growing friendship over the months. "Wouldn't miss it," Jordan assured him. He looked around the community center approvingly. "You've done great work." "Here." "We've done great work," Marcus corrected, including the entire team in the acknowledgement. Jordan nodded in agreement, then lowered his voice. "Your mom make it?" "Front row," Marcus confirmed, gesturing to where Grace Reeves sat near the podium. Though still thin, she looked healthier than she had in years, a colorful scarf wrapped stylishly around her head. "Good," Jordan said. "She should see this." The dedication ceremony began with brief speeches from city officials and program directors. Jordan would speak last, but before that, Alan Parker approached the podium. "Before we hear from Michael," he announced, "there's someone else who should speak today. The person whose vision has shaped this first community court, whose connection to this neighborhood has informed every aspect of the program." He gestured toward Marcus. "Marcus Reeves, our Community Engagement Director." A ripple of surprise went through Marcus. This hadn't been on the program. He glanced at Jordan, who nodded encouragingly. With a deep breath, Marcus walked to the podium. Looking out at the assembled crowd, the neighborhood children, his mother, Jordan and the Bulls legends, O'Malley and the bar regulars, who had known his father, he felt a profound sense of connection. "I didn't prepare a speech," Marcus began honestly. 6 months ago, I was just a security guard on my first day of work. I had no idea my life was about to change completely." He shared the story briefly. The confrontation at the United Center, the basketball challenge, the discovery of his father's letter in the Bulls' archives. As he spoke, he saw the children leaning forward, captivated by the tale of ordinary connections leading to extraordinary opportunities. "My father believed basketball was more than just a game," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. "He believed it was a bridge between different worlds, different generations." He gestured to the court, visible through the windows. "That's what this place is, a bridge. Not just a place to play basketball, but a place to build connections. That might change lives in ways we can't imagine." Marcus looked directly at the children in the audience. "Some of you might become professional athletes. Most won't. but that doesn't matter. What matters are the lessons you'll learn here about teamwork, about perseverance, about standing your ground when it matters, about helping someone change a tire on a rainy night and expecting nothing in return. This last reference drew a knowing smile from Jordan and a tearful one from Grace. My father never got to see this court, Marcus concluded, but his spirit is here, in every game that will be played, in every connection that will be made, in every life that will be changed. He touched the keychain in his pocket, Jordan's keychain, now his. Some connections echo across time. Some kindnesses return in ways we never expect. This court is proof of that. The applause that followed was heartfelt. As Marcus returned to his seat, Jordan rose to take the podium, clasping Marcus's shoulder briefly as they passed. Jordan's speech was characteristically powerful, but brief. He spoke about Chicago, about community, about the next generation. Then he unveiled the official name of the new facility, revealed on a plaque by the entrance, the James Reeves Community Court and Center. Marcus felt the tears he'd been holding back finally spill over. His mother reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. After the speeches, the formal ribbon cutting took place at the court entrance. Jordan handed the oversized ceremonial scissors to Marcus and Grace, letting them share the honor of officially opening the facility.